and approached the guard stationed outside. He produced the land deed, displayed his identification, and proclaimed, "Your chieftain is deceased. Those willing to follow me, take your weapons and await outside the village. For those unwilling to join me, remove your armor and depart. To anyone contemplating resistance, there shall be no mercy." Although Lu Yu's voice was not loud, it resonated clearly in the ears of all present. The sight of the land deed in Lu Yu's hands instantly relaxed the expressions of many. Some contemplated shedding their armor, but a companion swiftly nudged them, exclaiming, "Are you foolish? Do you not see that he is Qingjiao? Aligning with him means becoming a part of this territory." Those who were in the process of disarming promptly halted their actions, refastening their gear and blending in with the others as they proceeded to await outside the village. Lu Yu's words quickly spread throughout the entire Shiliang village. Soon, only Lu Yu and the innocent youth remained within the village, while all others willingly formed a queue outside, awaiting Lu Yu's instructions upon his emergence. Chapter 323. The apothecary shop owner. Over 10,000 individuals stood at the entrance of Shiliang village, creating a somewhat congested atmosphere. Upon seeing Lu Yu emerge, a man resembling a centurion rushed forward. "My lord, here is the roster of all personnel in Shiliang village. Please verify it." Lu Yu accepted the roster and glanced at the total number, 10,012 individuals. Compared to the previous gathering at the Alliance village, this number was nearly double. Of course, considering the population of players in the Alliance city, it was more than 200 times greater. Nonetheless, in Lu Yu's perspective, a village with a population of 10,000 was still considered quite substantial. With such a considerable number, Lu Yu knew he could not call out each name individually. He summoned the proprietors of several key establishments and instructed all the guards to remain. The others were free to attend to their respective duties. Lu Yu had promised that once the Battle of the Stags concluded, those here would retain their current positions and that those who contributed would receive enhanced rewards. Throughout these assurances, Lu Yu prominently displayed his ID as Qingjiao. The promise of an ordinary player might hold little weight, but the commitment of Qingjiao, the foremost among the human race, was something everyone would trust. Aside from those who were retained, the rest re-entered the city. Among them were individuals who had previously harbored doubts about whether to stay. After all, few had actually witnessed Qingjiao in person while within the city. Most had merely heard that Qingjiao had instructed them to wait outside the village and followed the crowd. Now, having seen Qingjiao himself, their apprehensions were finally alleviated. With Qingjiao contending for this territory, could the final lord possibly be anyone else? Before long, the crowd outside the village dwindled from over 10,000 to fewer than 1,000. Lu Yu summoned the owners of several shops, instructing them to present their finest goods for his inspection. The shopkeepers exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting a shared concern. In tumultuous times, conducting business proved challenging. Despite the presence of a dignitary, they harbored fears that he might seize their wares for public use. Yet, standing before him, they felt compelled to comply, reluctantly retrieving items from their satchels for Lu Yu's appraisal. One by one, he examined their offerings. The blacksmith could forge equipment of dark gold quality, somewhat inferior to that of the main city's forges and far from the standards of Jui City, yet sufficient for the current needs. The tavern owner produced commendable brews, nearly on par with those of the main city's establishments. The restaurant proprietor fared less well, as the culinary enhancements were inherently modest. Next came the apothecary, who presented a vial of basic life potion. Lu Yu furrowed his brow, scrutinizing the potion before shifting his gaze to the portly owner. "Is it true that your establishment can only concoct basic potions?" he inquired. "Why yes, my lord," the owner stammered. "Our shop is small, with few hands, and our alchemist's skills are quite ordinary, limiting us to the most rudimentary potions." Lu Yu fixed a steady gaze upon the proprietor, who, upon meeting his eyes, quickly averted his gaze, fidgeting nervously. Observing the apothecary's reaction, Lu Yu instantly grasped the truth. The shop did not merely lack the capacity to create advanced potions. Rather, the owner was fearful of having their supplies requisitioned, leading him to present only the basic potion. Potions were crucial strategic resources. Consumption during battles was invariably substantial, and the disparity in value between basic and intermediate potions was not trivial. Lu Yu empathized with the apothecary's apprehension. Had he been in the owner's position, he too would harbor such concerns. However, he was not merely a shopkeeper but a lord. Though he had yet to formally assume office, he felt no doubt regarding his future. Yet, this owner was deceiving himself and the future lord of this territory, an act that could not be tolerated. With a slight smile, Lu Yu declared, "My territory has no need for a shop that can only produce basic potions. You are free to leave. I will grant you half an hour." The apothecary was taken aback by this pronouncement. His establishment was not insignificant. Under the burdensome taxes imposed by the former chieftain, he still managed to thrive. This location served as a vital hub for players, and he was loath to depart. Moreover, once this area was officially recognized as a territory, business would only flourish further. He could not bear the thought of leaving. Seeing Lu Yu turn to depart, he urgently called out, "My lord." The lord mused that his humble shop was not solely capable of concocting elementary potions. Rather, intermediate potions were the store's primary offerings, and even advanced potions could be brewed within its walls. Upon uttering these words, the proprietor of the shop was immediately filled with regret. Lu Yu turned around, his gaze icy. I previously instructed you to present your finest product, yet you chose to offer me an elementary potion. Now, you suddenly claim the ability to brew advanced potions? The apothecary was rendered speechless, at a loss for how to defend himself. Centurion. Here. The only centurion of Shiliang village promptly approached, and Lu Yu glanced at his name, Wan Jejun. Such a splendid surname led Lu Yu to believe that his subordinates would not refer to him as centurion, but rather as Lord Wan. Dispatch someone to investigate this apothecary. Confiscate all potions within, bind the proprietor, and display him in the central square with a notice proclaiming that his downfall stems from deceiving the Lord. Yes. Wan Jejun immediately sent someone to carry out the task. This was the first command Lu Yu had given him, and he wished he could execute it himself. However, since Lu Yu was present, he felt compelled to remain and oversee the situation, relying on his most trusted subordinate for supervision. Upon hearing Lu Yu's decree, the apothecary collapsed to the ground, only to be dragged away by 2 guards. Perhaps in his final moments, he still believed he had done nothing wrong. This new lord had merely sought an excuse to confiscate his potions and shop. Even had he produced his finest potion, it would not alter his fate. Yet, Lu Yu was unconcerned with the apothecary's thoughts. Upon his arrival in Shiliang village, he sensed a lack of cohesion among the populace, with even the most basic rules disregarded. He urgently needed to establish his authority, and by chance, someone had stepped into the line of fire, warranting a severe penalty. As the apothecary was removed, Lu Yu continued his inspection, and the remaining merchants appeared increasingly cautious and respectful. The wares they held were generally satisfactory. When he reached the final individual, the merchant presented nothing, standing there trembling in fear. Lu Yu glanced at the roster and instantly understood. This man was the owner of the warhorse establishment. The goods in his shop, horses and various leather products, were not easily portable. Chapter 324. Warhorses. Every village possesses its unique characteristics. Once upon a time, the hallmark of the Gathering Righteousness village was the green-skinned cattle from the back mountains. In contrast, the distinguishing feature of Shiliang village is its warhorses, a strategic resource of even greater value than green-skinned cattle. Lu Yu observed the quaking man before him, whose name was Ma Butong. Are you affiliated with the former village chief? Ma Butong hastily shook his head. My lord, I have no connection to the former chief. You may inquire with the locals, and they will attest to my words. At that moment, Ma Butong felt fortunate that he had not entangled himself in any dealings with the former village chief for the sake of business. The new lord stood here, and those connected to the former chieftain need not inquire about their fate. Lu Yu glanced at the others and noticed their slight nods. In such times, their willingness to vouch for Ma Butong indicated his commendable rapport with others. However, Lu Yu found it perplexing that such a vital strategic resource as horses would be entrusted to a complete outsider by the chieftain of Shiliang, a man with no ties to him. How are your horses faring? My lord, the shop currently has just 3 individuals, including myself and the staff. I cannot say we are at a loss, but we are barely managing. No one is purchasing warhorses? Hardly anyone. The majority have not yet reached level 40 and cannot ride. However, I have heard that more and more individuals are completing their first transition, so our business will surely improve soon. The stable owner hurriedly explained, fearing Lu Yu might shut down his shop due to its poor performance. Lu Yu turned to Wan Jiaju. Your men should have completed their first transition by now. Have they not acquired warhorses? Wan Jiaju lowered his head. Indeed, that fellow only indulges in pleasure each day, spending most of the village's funds on constructing that castle. Lu Yu understood. A man who rolls in pleasure before death cannot be expected to have grand ambitions. Ma Butong, you are to continue managing the horses, but you must not sell any warhorses to others. In 3 days, I want all the warhorses needed for the guards here. The funds required can be collected from the Lord's Hall after the deer hunting war. Do you understand? Understood. Thank you, my lord. Ma Butong exclaimed, tears of gratitude streaming down his face, nearly kneeling on the spot. Lu Yu waved his hand. Everyone else, return to your shops. As long as you conduct your business honestly, you are my subjects. Should anyone attempt to play tricks, let the apothecary be your warning. Thank you, my lord. The tension lifted as everyone bowed to Lu Yu and returned to their respective shops. Only Wan Jiaju and the 900 guards remained. Now, please elaborate on the specifics of your forces. Yes, reporting to you, my lord, the Shiliang Guard comprises a total of 952 men, all of whom have completed their first transition. Among them, 2 have reached level 60, 95 are between levels 50 and 60, and 855 are below level 50. What about their professions? We are organized into squads of 10, with an average of 4 warriors, 2 priests, 2 mages, and 2 archers in each squad. Lu Yu nodded. This configuration was not particularly optimal, but it sufficed for Shiliang. Alright, during the upcoming deer hunting war, I will not have you engage in battle. Your task is to maintain order within the territory. If anyone breaches the territory, it is not your concern. However, should any issues arise within, I will make an example of you. Do you understand? Yes, my lord. Go ahead. Indeed, Wan Jiaju, accompanied by his loyal guards, returned in an orderly fashion to Shiliang Fort. Brother, there is just over an hour until the deer hunting war begins. Lu Yu remarked, glancing at the time. Realizing that his moments were indeed fleeting. Come, let us first unleash the summoned beasts. If another 1,000,000 players arrive, I shall suffer great losses. Those 100,000 goblins are mere projections. Once they perish, there will be no chance for summoning them again. Brother, the time elapsed since the opening of the Goldenstone Secret Realm is only halfway. Do you think it's possible that those players are all mining inside, leaving no one to contest the territory? What are you pondering? If they dared to contest last time, do you believe they would shy away this time? It's best to be prepared, Lu Yu replied as he and the innocent youth galloped across the rugged terrain, on the plains flanking them. Lu Yu resolved not to deploy any summoned beasts. Such a flat expanse would render them mere targets. However, when the players arrived, he could utilize the open terrain to send cavalry charging forth in waves, depleting the players' effective forces. In contrast, in the intricate and convoluted hills, Lu Yu summoned numerous beasts to guard each area he traversed. Especially on the perilous and towering peaks, he stationed a multitude of archers and mages. His summoning space was abundant with ranged classes. The pain inflicted by those goblins in the past was now being avenged with reckless abandon in his preparations. With an ample supply of summoned beasts at his disposal, he would not exhaust their numbers. In less than an hour, the area surrounding Shiliang Fort was already teeming with Lu Yu's summoned creatures. He himself stood atop the highest peak, surveying the entire layout below. In truth, Lu Yu wished to take the Lord's deed and retreat to the safety of the gathering city, where security was undoubtedly superior to this desolate wilderness. Alas, those who possessed the Lord's deed were restricted from straying too far from the designated territory during the deer hunting war. Should they step outside this range, the deed would vanish from their grasp, only to reappear randomly in some corner of the territory. Thus, Lu Yu could only await the player's assault, deed in hand. As time ticked away, the countdown to the deer hunting war drew to a close. System notification: the deer hunting war has officially commenced, with the territory up for grabs being Shiliang Fort. The duration of this war is 6 hours. The player who ultimately secures the deed will become the lord of this territory, wielding authority over it. Should a player holding the deed perish during the war, they will lose the deed with a 100 drop rate. Members of the faction, Lords of the Abyss, that initiated the deer hunting war will receive a 1-point enhancement to all attributes. System notification: player, Qing Jiu, has acquired the deed, coordinates 73664-21986. Chapter 325. Not a soul in sight. The deer hunting war has officially begun. This time, Lu Yu possessed a number of summoned beasts that was 5 or 6 times greater than before, and unlike the previous occasion where he had to defend the Unity City, he would not be overly distressed if the current Shiliang stronghold were to be razed by players. It would be ideal for the stronghold to endure, but if it did not, he could simply establish a new one. Therefore, he refrained from summoning the Abyss Lord's minions back, confident in his ability to withstand for 6 hours on his own. Brother Yu, I have gathered the Abyss Lord's minions, ready to head over now. Do you have any plans? Came the message from Wu Shi Wu Gong. The hunt order was initiated by Lu Yu, yet the hunt battle was fundamentally a faction war. Do not emerge, continue mining within. There is still half the time left in the Goldenstone Secret Realm. Strive to extract more high-quality ores. And I will forge equipment for you, he instructed. Brother Yu, do you require a guard? I am sufficient on my own. Pure emotion is with me, and there is no special target to protect this time. 2 Abyss professions will suffice. Alright, be cautious, Brother Yu. The brothers are eager to secure a territory of our own soon. Yes, rest assured. By the way, take the time to consolidate those with high sub-profession levels in the guild. Once we have our territory, we must also begin to develop our economy. I have been keeping a tally. Good. Lu Yu closed the dialogue box and awaited the players vying for the land deed in silence. His coordinates would be reported at regular intervals, making it impossible to hide. Thus, he stood still, observing who might breach the throngs of summoned beasts surrounding him. The black-headed eagle led a flock of its kind, circling overhead. The entire territory, along with a vast area beyond its borders, was under Lu Yu's vigilant watch. The mermaid squad was also poised for action. Though few in number, they could achieve remarkable effects amidst dense crowds. His final trump card was the Golden Crow. Though it could only exist for a brief period, that time would suffice to incinerate thousands of players. Pure Emotion entered a stealth mode, targeting the elite players among the crowd, as well as the instigators. In the previous hunt battle, the presence of figures like A.O. Shi, Xing Tian, Yin Ming, and Yi Jian had deliberately guided the free players' movements, leading to the breach of Unity City's walls. This time, Lu Yu had gained experience. Upon detecting such influential figures, he would have Pure Emotion extinguish them in their infancy. Without leadership, the free players would be like a headless flock, scattered and easily manageable. Du Guohua sent a message. Brother Lu, I had initially planned to bring some people to support you. But hearing that scoundrel claim you haven't even allowed the Abyss Lord's men to join, I shall refrain from joining the fray. The scoundrel he referred to was undoubtedly his son, Du Qian, who was now with Wu Shi Wu Gong. However, if Lu Yu recalls correctly, Wang Ba Gaozi seems to mean son of a turtle. If you refer to your son as Wang Ba Gaozi, then what does that make you? Du Guohua sent this message in a small group chat with Lu Yu and Li Wei. After his message, Li Wei also responded, I'm in the same boat. There has been an overwhelming amount of tasks lately, and I'm utterly swamped. Lu, shall I send Tianxiao over to assist you? His spatial skills allow him to move quite swiftly. Lu Yu hurriedly replied, Brother Hua, Director Li, this situation is my fault. I neglected to inform you beforehand. Regarding the upcoming deer hunting war, I should be able to handle it on my own, so there's no need to trouble you. I haven't even had the chance to thank you for helping me fend off the resurrected players last time. Come now, what are you saying? Let us not be so formal between us. I still need your assistance in my second office, Du Guohua replied. Exactly, Lu, my brother. Both Director Li and I possess a deer hunting token, but we feel our own strength is insufficient and have hesitated to use it. It would be perfect if you could first scout the territory for us. All right, Brother Hua, Director Li, when you're ready to claim the territory, just let me know, and I'll help you establish your presence. We thank you in advance. With you, Lu Yu, securing the area for us, our claim will be virtually assured. Lu Yu exchanged a few more pleasantries with the two before closing the dialogue box. In the realms of Lingfeng City and Ji City, as long as Lu Yu wished, he could wield considerable influence. Unless all other players united to oppose him, he was undoubtedly the true leader. Thus, agreeing to assist Du Guohua and Li Wei in claiming territory was not merely idle talk. Time ticked away, and the dark eagles circled overhead. Yet Lu Yu found it peculiar that not a single player had appeared. This left him feeling somewhat perplexed. With only 6 hours allotted for the deer hunting war, and an hour already elapsed, why had no one arrived? Were they perhaps gathering reinforcements? After all, to take him down, they would need to overwhelm him with sheer numbers. As no other strategy seemed feasible, taking a deep breath, Lu Yu continued to wait patiently. The system's repetitive location announcements had begun to numb his senses. 3 hours had swiftly passed, leaving only half the time remaining for the deer hunting war. Yet, he still saw no sign of any players. The surrounding area was devoid of even a single wild creature, as all the nearby beasts had been eradicated by Lu Yu's summoned beasts. Gazing across the desolate plain, Lu Yu couldn't help but wonder if some crafty strategist was plotting a last-minute ambush, hoping to eliminate him before the war concluded, reclaiming the lordship deed before the battle was over. But could these individuals truly be confident in dispatching him within a mere 3 hours? Lu Yu opened a dialogue box with an air of indifference. Please help me find out where there is a large congregation of players. It strikes me as peculiar that no one has come to seize the Lord's deed yet. Understood, Brother Yu. After a span of several minutes, the reply came, Brother Yu. I dispatched a few individuals to investigate. There are no players gathering near Lingfeng City or Ji City. Furthermore, those I assigned reported that the major guilds, Aoshi Alliance, Yin Alliance, and Fengwei Alliance, are all busy mining in the Jinshi secret realm, seemingly uninterested in participating in the upcoming hunt for the deer war. What? Lu Yu was taken aback. These factions intended to forego the hunt for the deer war? If they were not participating, it was likely that the other solo players would not come either. Alright, I understand now. Lu Yu closed the dialogue box, feeling a wave of exasperation wash over him. What was going on? He had painstakingly set various traps and obstacles, personally filling the entire Luophone Ridge with his summoned beasts. Yet, it seemed these players had no intention of showing up. Could they not have informed him sooner? Why make him wait so long? Brother, what is happening? The innocent youth beside Lu Yu disengaged from her stealth state. She had just circled the Luophone Ridge and, as expected, found nothing. Lu Yu helplessly shrugged. Let us take a break. It seems unlikely that anyone will come to seize the deed now. Chapter 326. The domain of the Abyssal Lord. Upon hearing Lu Yu's words, the innocent youth's mouth fell open. Didn't they think to notify us in advance? I was so excited just a moment ago. She plopped down onto the grass, deliberately tracing her fingers lightly along her thigh. Brother, since there's no one around, I've heard that the wilderness can be much more thrilling. Lu Yu thought to himself how this young girl seemed eager to seize any opportunity to engage with him. He too sat down, yet deliberately maintained a distance from the innocent youth, closing his eyes. Though he was aware that the likelihood of anyone arriving was slim, Lu Yu had no intention of retracting the defensive measures he had set up. Should a major guild suddenly change its mind in these final 2 hours and rally an attack, it would be quite distressing. As time steadily passed, 2 hours soon elapsed. System announcement. The hunt for the deer war has officially concluded. Player, Qingjiu, has ultimately secured the deed, and Shiliang village has become the territory of the Abyssal Lord Guild. System announcement. The hunt for the deer war has ended, due to the absence of any player-inflicted damage. No special rewards will be issued. System announcement. Congratulations to the Guild, Abyssal Lord, for acquiring the first territory, granting 20 guild experience and 50 member experience, along with the item reward Certificate of Glory. The 3 consecutive system announcements heralded the end of the hunt for the deer war. Upon hearing the second announcement, Lu Yu felt no joy. Rather, a profound sense of regret enveloped him. Had I known earlier, I would have sought someone to eliminate my adversaries and secure the MVP of the Battle of the Stags, whether individually or within a faction. Such an achievement would yield additional rewards. How could I have overlooked this? Lu Yu shook his head in regret. He first placed the recently acquired Certificate of Glory into the display rack of the faction. The Lord of the Abyss now possessed 6 Certificates of Glory, 4 of which were earned by Lu Yu himself, 1 purchased from a faction member, and another fortuitously obtained by that rascal Chinju. Merely possessing these 6 certificates allowed the members of the Lord of the Abyss to gain 6 more experience points than other players. One must not underestimate this seemingly small difference. It is precisely this marginal advantage that creates disparity. Currently, among all factions, the Lord of the Abyss boasts the highest average level and the greatest number of first promotions. Furthermore, given the current momentum, the disparity in strength between the Lord of the Abyss and other factions will only continue to widen. Alas, the power of factions in the Abyss is akin to wealth and authority in the real world. The initial stages may be fraught with challenges, but once a certain level of accumulation is reached, the advantages will gradually magnify. Moreover, this accumulation occurs not at an even pace, but rather accelerates exponentially. The lordship deed in Lu Yu's possession had undergone a transformation, shifting from a state of vacancy to one exclusively belonging to the Lord of the Abyss. Upon opening it, Lu Yu discovered that it was not merely a deed, but also a map of the territory. With it, all topographical features, resources, and significant events within the territory could be comprehensively surveyed. A cursory glance revealed that the most prominent feature of the Luofeng Ridge was undoubtedly the Shiliang stronghold. Apart from this stronghold, the resource of warhorses was notable. As for the others, wait. Lu Yu suddenly noticed a minuscule area in the upper left corner of the territory that contained a mine. The earth grade, or black crystal, serves as the main ingredient for gunpowder in the game. Although it was only indicated as a small point on the map, Lu Yu felt a surge of excitement. The reason for the limited depiction was not due to a scarcity of black crystal ore, but rather that the extended mining area lay beyond the boundaries of the territory. Hence it was not displayed on the deed. Black crystal ore is quite rare, yet its mere presence suggests a substantial scale. This revelation nearly prompted Lu Yu to leap for joy. Within the city of Ju-Yi, his secondary mentor, Wu Tianju, was engrossed in the study of firearms. Firearms without gunpowder are undoubtedly insufficient. Thus, the discovery of this mine could usher in a new era for the Lord of the Abyss. However, Lu Yu refrained from rushing to commence mining. He needed to first establish a connection and transportation link between the territory of the Lord of the Abyss and Ju-Yi City, facilitating mutual support between the two. Regrettably, Sun Hanyu lacked a system chat window. Otherwise, Lu Yu could have directly contacted her to summon Chief Ferui and the old village chief to construct a spring and teleportation array for him. Consequently, he would have to make the journey back personally. Lu Yu first summoned all his summoned beasts to gather around him, retrieving them into his summoning space. He did not assign a significant number of summoned beasts to guard the black crystal mine. After such a long time without discovery, it was likely that the mine remained well concealed. Lu Yu had no intention of unnecessary actions that would draw attention to the location. However, he did position a few assassins to lurk nearby, just in case someone stumbled upon the treasure during his travels. Having completed these arrangements, Lu Yu returned to the Shiliang stronghold with the innocent youth. Although everyone here had already submitted to Lu Yu, the legal implications were not yet realized due to the ongoing hunting war. Now, legally speaking, this territory belonged to Lu Yu, alleviating any lingering concerns. He instructed the innocent youth to remain and conduct a thorough population assessment, emphasizing the importance of discipline. Initially, Lu Yu had contemplated demolishing a particular castle, but upon reflection, he realized that tearing it down would leave him without a place to rest within his own domain. Ultimately, he opted to preserve it. However, he dismissed the servants and maids, arranging for them to find new livelihoods in various shops. Once these tasks were accomplished, Lu Yu prepared to head to Juyi City to request a teleportation array and a spring from his mentor. Yet, as he stepped out of the stronghold, he spotted Chief Ferui and the old village chief approaching leisurely on their small horses. Upon seeing Lu Yu, the old village chief cheerfully exclaimed, "Are you eager for us to assist you in constructing the teleportation array and spring?" "Hee. The young lady has been counting the days, even before your hunting war concluded. She sent us here." Chief Ferui added, "We must hurry. The Goldenstone secret realm is nearing its end, and we need to return to Juyi City." Chapter 327. The Spring of Life. Lu Yu led the two into Abyss City. It was no longer called Shiliang Stronghold, after acquiring the land deed. He had renamed it Abyss City. Although it was far from the scale of a proper city, there were no restrictions on naming. Moreover, Lu Yu believed that his territory would eventually become at least a secondary main city. He even aspired to develop Abyss City into the second primary main city for humans. Otherwise, it would not do justice to the name Abyss. "Hey, brother, you're back so soon?" The innocent youth was busy cataloging the spoils from the potion shop when he suddenly saw Lu Yu return, accompanied by two familiar old men. With the absence of the carefree and gang members, such matters could only be entrusted to this young girl. Lu Yu nodded. "My mentor sent them ahead of time." "Your mentor is truly kind, unlike my mentor, that old witch, who only knows how to bully me," the innocent youth replied. Lu Yu thought to himself that Dongfang Roland was indeed a prime example of a mature woman, far removed from the term old witch, though he would never voice such sentiments aloud. After the potion shop has been thoroughly inspected, let us retain all the usable items left by the original staff here, and subsequently, display the potions from Jiangnan. By the way, do not sell the finest batch. Rather, for the others, double their prices according to the common potion market rates. Understood, brother. Recently, Ru Ming has concocted a substantial quantity, all stored in the guild warehouse. Ru Ming's potions, derived from her alchemical pursuits in Jiangnan, exhibit effects approximately 40 superior to those of standard potions. She is currently undergoing specialized training in Ju Yi City under the guidance of Sun Miao, which is bound to further enhance the quality of her potions. An effect that surpasses ordinary potions by 40 to 50%, priced merely twice that of standard potions. Is indeed quite a bargain. Consuming potions incurs a cooldown, thus, in critical moments. The difference between a potion that restores 2,000 health and one that restores 3,000 health is substantial. Sometimes, that mere 1,000 health can determine the difference between being slain by a boss and vanquishing it. The locations for the Resurrection Spring and the teleportation array have long been mapped out by Lu Yu, situated in the vacant land between the castle and the central square. For these two vital structures, Lu Yu has decided to have them overlap, with the spring above and the teleportation array below. While this arrangement may risk both the spring and the array being destroyed simultaneously during an assault, it also facilitates a more efficient defense, particularly for the guild's territory. The primary defensive force comprises only the guild members. Despite Lu Yu's current leadership, with nearly 30,000 members from both the main and subordinate guilds, this number is still insufficient in light of future wars that may involve armies in the hundreds of thousands. Furthermore, there is the pressing issue of limited territorial scope. Carving out additional areas diminishes the land available for other purposes. Chi Fa Rue surveyed the land and nodded, immediately setting to work without hesitation. The spring must be constructed atop the teleportation array, prompting the old village chief to refrain from rushing into action. Instead, he inquired, "Young man, the elven spring has been entirely depleted. The young lady mentioned you possess alternative materials. I am indeed curious about what could serve as a substitute for the elven spring. Please present them to me, and I shall assess their viability." Lu Yu smiled slightly and summoned the ancient tree spirit with a single gesture. The old village chief exclaimed, "Old man, what do you think? Is it usable?" The old chief was momentarily at a loss for words. Yet, he had not anticipated that Lu Yu would present this particular item as a substitute for the elven spring. Its usability was assured, as the spring in the novice village had once been linked to this ancient tree spirit. The restoration effect of this entity is not particularly high. While it sufficed for the novice village's spring, it should still be adequate for the current level. However, as health points escalate into the hundreds of thousands, its efficacy may wane. We shall devise another solution at that time. Venturing to the elven realm for the elven spring now would be folly. However, after my second-class transition, it should pose no significant issue. At that point, I shall have you construct a new spring. You truly do not shy away from inconveniencing this old man, do you? However, you mentioned that you do not dare to venture into the elven tribe at this moment, preferring to wait until your second transformation. Are you contemplating a forcible takeover? Allow me to clarify that the elven tribe harbors a deep-seated resentment. How could one possibly seize from them? I have always adhered to the principle of persuasion through reason. Yet from your tone, it seems you are not inclined to engage in such rational discourse. Physics itself is a form of reason, is it not? Old village chief, Chief Farui could not help but chuckle. Now I understand why the young lady is so fond of you. It appears you share a similar temperament. Ha ha ha. Do you know why the resurrection spring water requires elven spring? Lu Yu was momentarily taken aback. He truly did not know the answer, only aware that the establishment of spring water was inseparable from the elven spring. Noticing Lu Yu's puzzled expression, Chief Farui continued, "In truth, the elven spring was originally called the Spring of Life, originating from the Lake of Life. However, the elven tribe has monopolized that area, rendering it inaccessible to other races. Hence, the Spring of Life was renamed the Elven Spring." Lu Yu nodded in understanding. It was no wonder the elven tribe possessed such vibrant vitality. Initially, he believed this was an inherent trait of their race, but it now appeared more likely due to the influence of the Spring of Life. Nevertheless, upon hearing the term Spring of Life, an inexplicable thought of the River of Death surfaced in Lu Yu's mind. One spring, one river, one teeming with life, the other steeped in lethargy. In every aspect, these two realms seem to be a pair. The elven tribe, endowed with the Spring of Life, is undeniably formidable. Their recuperative abilities are extraordinarily potent, and their attributes across the board are remarkably high. Therefore, young man, should you consider a forcible acquisition, exercise extreme caution, lest you become a permanent resident. As Chief Farui spoke, his hands moved swiftly, having already constructed a rudimentary teleportation array. Lu Yu's need for a teleportation point was not as pressing as that of the Gathering City. In fact, his primary destination was merely the Gathering City. Thus, Chief Farui found it quite effortless to build it. "I understand now. Thank you, old Chi," Lu Yu said, inclining his body slightly. The fact that Chief Farui was privy to such information attested to his remarkable nature. Furthermore, regarding Sun Hanyu, both Chief Farui and Sun Miao were undoubtedly unique figures. Although they both referred to Sun Hanyu as young lady, a glance at her attitude and manner of address towards these individuals revealed a stark contrast. Sun Hanyu had nearly considered castrating the old village chief, and her demeanor towards Wu Tianju was similarly indifferent. When Lu Yu brought Wu Tianju to the gathering village, she almost expelled him outright. However, with Sun Miao, the atmosphere was considerably more harmonious, within the malevolent domain of the Yuming tribe on Falling Eagle Peak. He was even able to ride on Sun Hanyu's mount. Chief Faroe's status, evidently, was somewhat higher, as Sun Hanyu consistently referred to him as Old Chi thus. It appears that among these individuals, Chief Faroe held the highest standing within the Sun family. Chapter 328. The Goblin General's Upgrade in the midst of conversation. Chief Faroe had already completed the construction of the teleportation array. All right, he exclaimed, clapping his hands and wiping the beads of sweat from his forehead. This teleportation array primarily connects Ju-Yi City and Lingfeng City, with a single trip to Ju-Yi City capable of accommodating over 10,000 individuals. However, it is advisable not to exceed 1,000 people for each journey to Lingfeng City. Lowering his voice, Chief Rue added, "It seems that Lingfeng City is quite displeased with the emergence of your territory. I secretly connected the teleportation array, so it is not very stable. If the volume exceeds limits, it may collapse." Lu Yu nodded, indicating his understanding. "Then I shall take my leave. I am unfamiliar with the remaining spring water, and I must return to create more scrolls. An increasing number of individuals are joining Ju-Yi City. I cannot allow my insufficient scrolls to cause delays." With that, Chief Rue stepped into the teleportation array, his figure vanishing from sight. "Hey, what about the other materials? Hurry and bring them out. I need to finish this quickly and head back. Why are you in such a rush to return? You won't be of much help. You only possess skills in constructing spring water, which Ju-Yi City no longer requires." The old village chief retorted, "I have yet to finish building for you. And you dare to insult me? Do you believe I would stop working? If you cease your efforts, I shall seek out the mentor. Please, please, please. I traveled a long way. How could I possibly abandon this? I will get to work right away." Lu Yu showed no hesitation towards the old village chief, as he had exploited him back in the novice village. Now it was time to rectify that. Lu Yu took out all the remaining materials, which were few, indicating that this spring would not be large. Nonetheless, having a resurrection spring within his territory was something any faction would dare not even dream of. He entrusted the construction of the resurrection spring to the old village chief and entered the summoning space. He had been delayed by numerous matters and had yet to fully exploit the rebellious creatures within. Upon entering the summoning space, Lu Yu immediately spotted the little abyss lurking in the corner. Although this creature lacked eyes and a nose, Lu Yu could sense its attention was entirely focused on the summoned beast. It was a feeling akin to longing yet restrained, continuously swallowing saliva. Quietly, Lu Yu approached and abruptly asked, "What are you looking at?" The little abyss trembled at once, and upon seeing Lu Yu, an air of servility enveloped it. "Oh, nothing. Heh, just resting. Sleeping. You still need to sleep?" Lu Yu remained silent, observing the little abyss until the tiny creature began to tremble, visibly anxious. Only then did Lu Yu speak. "If I discover one of my summoned beasts missing one day, your existence will no longer be necessary." "Master, I would not dare." "Good." Then, Lu Yu casually summoned all the wild creatures he had captured in the mysterious space, instructing them to consume the offerings. "Feast upon these, and once you are done, I shall lead you out, hoping to enhance some other items," he declared. At the mention of the first part, the little abyss was filled with excitement. However, upon hearing that further enhancements were required after the feast, that exhilaration vanished in an instant. While indulging in food brought joy, the notion of regurgitating what had been consumed was nothing short of torment. Yet, it dared not defy Lu Yu's command and obediently devoured all the summoned beasts. The little abyss's body swelled to an exaggerated size once more. Observing outside, Lu Yu noted that the old village chief had yet to complete the spring construction, so he was in no rush to take the little abyss out. He glanced upward at the experience reservoir above the summoning space, which still contained a substantial amount of unused experience. The experience gained from slaying 100,000 goblins remained untapped, along with the subsequent experience from the 4-turn golden crows and that from the mysterious space. Though Lu Yu could not ascertain the exact amount now, he reasoned that leaving such a bounty unused was unwise, as it bore no interest. He resolved to lavishly expend all of it first. As for who would benefit from this accumulation, Lu Yu surveyed the summoned beasts within the space. Few possessed upgrade potential. The Goblin General was one, and that group of mermaids could be another. However, as Lu Yu's level increased, the remaining summoned beasts held little value for upgrades. Between the Goblin General and the mermaids, Lu Yu decisively opted for the Goblin General. The primary reason lay in the recent perils he had faced, all orchestrated by the Goblin tribe. Although this Goblin General was merely a projection, it represented the mightiest among the goblins. Elevating its level promised unexpected rewards. Lu Yu channeled all the experience into the Goblin General. Layers of radiance enveloped the Goblin General as its level rapidly ascended from 35, soaring until it reached 50, where it eventually came to a halt, having achieved the first transition. Lu Yu promptly accessed the Goblin General's attribute panel for inspection. He was indifferent to other details. For a level 50 summoned beast, even as the Goblin General, would not exhibit anything particularly remarkable in attributes. His sole concern lay with its talents and skills. Talent, blank. Lu Yu grimaced. The Goblin General had not projected its occupational talent during the initial summoning. and even after the first transition, it still bore no occupational talent. This left Lu Yu somewhat disheartened, silently cursing its stinginess. How could the mightiest of the goblin tribe withhold even its occupational talent? Though he grumbled, he realized that had the goblin general projected its talent in the beginning, it was likely that the novice Lu Yu would never have escaped that nefarious map. Lu Yu continued to read, realizing that with a lack of innate talent, he had no choice but to rely on skills. Ocean of Knowledge, Summon 1,000 Troops, and War Horn. As he gazed upon these familiar abilities, he couldn't help but feel a wave of exasperation. The skills were neither abundant nor lacking. Was this projection of any real utility? Not only did it fail to reveal new skills, but it also lacked any descriptions for the existing ones. Skill descriptions? Lu Yu scrutinized the text once more, and suddenly his eyes widened. The Ocean of Knowledge and War Horn remained unchanged. Yet the Summon 1,000 Troops skill had transformed significantly. Chapter 329, Summon 1,000 Troops. Originally, this skill allowed him to summon 18 elite guardians, fierce warriors with impeccable coordination, capable of matching an enemy force tenfold at the same level. However, for Lu Yu, this skill was practically useless, merely a decorative artifact in his arsenal. Far less practical than the War Horn, and even inferior to the Ocean of Knowledge. Yet, following the recent turn of events with the Goblin General, this skill underwent a complete metamorphosis. Summon 1,000 Troops. The Goblin General can instantly summon a Goblin Legion. Cooldown, 24 hours. What? Lu Yu found himself at a loss for words to articulate his feelings. The ability to immediately summon a Goblin Legion? Wasn't this precisely a means to annihilate the Goblin race? He quickly devised a plan for utilizing this skill. Each day, he could summon a Goblin Legion and store it in his summoning space. With a legion comprising 20,000 members, if fortune favored him. Prior to the descent of the abyss, Lu Yu could transform the entire elite of the Goblin race into his summoned beasts. Although the Goblin population was vast, excluding the scattered individuals, secondary occupations, and various factions, only a few hundred could be organized into legions, summoning one each day. And if the racial barrier were to open later than expected, Lu Yu could potentially consume the entire regular army of the Goblin race. While the skill did not specify whether the summoned legion would serve the Goblin General who summoned them, what did it matter? With his current strength, dispatching a Goblin Legion would pose little challenge. Moreover, as this process continued, it would only become easier. Lu Yu's sole concern was the Goblin General in his possession, which was merely a projection. What if the summoned Goblin Legion turned out to be mere projections as well? Although even projections would considerably enhance his strength. And at the very least, he would have provisions for the minor abyss. Projections ultimately lacked the solidity of capturing the actual entity. Thus, Lu Yu's greatest reliance at present did not stem from the recently acquired legion of over 80,000 goblins, but rather from the 40,000 warriors of the Nether race. Summoning the Goblin Legion within the realm of the void is merely a projection. Upon death, they dissipate without a trace. Only the corporeal forms of these spectral warriors endure, unaffected by the fate of mortality. Lu Yu, brimming with anticipation, yearned to summon a battalion of goblins to discern whether they were projections or true entities. Yet, despite issuing multiple commands to the Goblin General, the attempts to activate the skill failed. It was then that he realized he remained within the summoning space and had no choice but to exit. Outside, the construction of the village elder's spring was nearing completion. As the ancient treant was embedded within the waters, the spring radiated with a dazzling brilliance. Although its luminosity and extent paled in comparison to that of the capital spring, it signified that this spring was now operational. All right, young lad, give it a try. It should be functional, the elder declared, appearing weary. As he spoke, he drew his sword and pierced Lu Yu's arm. Lu Yu did not flinch. How could he gauge the spring's efficacy without experiencing injury? The elder's damage was significantly greater than during their initial encounters in the novice village. Back then, he and the traitor who allied with the goblins had been evenly matched, both at the first transition. Now, at level 60, Lu Yu found himself on the receiving end of a blow that inflicted 5-digit damage. The old man had made remarkable progress over the past month, likely having gained some exceptional boon while liberating other novice village tribes. Standing by the spring, Lu Yu felt his health slowly regenerate. To be candid, the restoration rate was incomparable to that of the main city's spring, with 10,000 hit points. It would take merely a second to heal in the capital, whereas here it required 2 to 3 seconds. Nevertheless, Lu Yu was content, for he still had a small abyss within his summoning space. Observing Lu Yu's gradual recovery, the elder shook his head. The effect is mediocre, barely sufficient, he remarked. All right, lad, I must return. The defense of the capital rests upon my shoulders. Although trouble is rare, one must not be careless. From the elder's words, it was evident that all novice villages had likely been reclaimed from the clutches of the other races. I had thought you were simply idling away in the capital under my mentor's wing, yet it seems you have genuine responsibilities. Am I the sort to reap rewards without effort? Lu Yu retorted. You certainly benefited from me during our novice days. A series of coughs erupted from the elder, masking his embarrassment. At that time, I had little to offer. You were well aware of my dire circumstances, he replied. Enough, enough. Be off with you, the elder concluded, departing swiftly via the teleportation array. In an instant, Lu Yu found himself alone. The innocent maiden approached, surveying the teleportation array and the spring before turning to Lu Yu. "Brother, in this day and age, is it truly talent that facilitates success?" she inquired. "What's the matter? I have heard that in the neighboring Frost City, a certain gang wishes to construct a teleportation array within their territory. It is said that they have already procured the necessary materials and located a skilled array master, achieving a rapport of 90 with the city lord. However, the lord of Frost City remains obstinately opposed." Lu Yu smiled faintly, stating that if their territory were within the confines of Lingfeng City, even with a perfect rapport of 100 with Song Qingyin, he would still not acquiesce. Why, you may ask? The crux lies in safety concerns. Once the teleportation array is established, it must connect with other arrays. Otherwise, one would be limited to using return scrolls. Yet, establishing such connections poses significant security risks. Should enemy forces occupy other teleportation points, they could directly transport their legions into the city, a perilous scenario indeed. It is solely due to the close relationship with my mentor, who understands my capabilities, that he dares to connect our teleportation array with that of the Unity City. Earlier, when Old Qi linked us to Lingfeng City, he did so through clandestine means, avoiding official channels. The innocent youth smacked his lips in contemplation, lamenting. My elder brother's mentor is truly commendable, unlike mine, who, aside from her alluring figure, serves little purpose. Lu Yu shook his head in exasperation at the boy's self-deprecating remarks about his own mentor. Lu Yu summoned his little abyss, enhanced this spring. How much energy is required? The little abyss surveyed its surroundings, noting that this was its first venture into the outside world since hatching. Yet, under Lu Yu's discerning gaze, it quickly focused on the spring. Soon, it wore an expression of difficulty. Master, to enhance this spring, at least 100,000 goblins are needed. The little abyss, having longed for goblins within its summoning space, was well aware of the energy contained within each goblin. Upon hearing this daunting number, Lu Yu promptly retracted the little abyss. He could not possibly sacrifice all his summoned beasts merely to enhance the spring. The innocent youth observed the little abyss's momentary surprise, but as Lu Yu offered no explanation, she refrained from inquiring further, pondering instead, Elder brother, why does Lingfeng City permit Unity City to connect their teleportation array to its own? The establishment of Unity City was sanctioned by a level 1 main city, receiving official recognition. Oh, elder brother, where is our human level 1 main city? It doesn't seem to appear on the map. It has not yet been activated, but it should be soon. Lu Yu glanced at his level and then at the skills of the goblin general. Regardless of whether the summoned army is a projection or the true entity, the experience yield of 20,000 for that day is assured. Chapter 330. Malcolm, let us find a secluded spot outside. The innocent youth paused. Elder brother, are you finally willing? Honestly, I believe the castle would suffice. I just checked, and there are still many toys left by the former lord. Lu Yu, uninterested in further banter with the young girl, strode directly towards the exterior of the encampment. He sought a suitable terrain, one that was easy to attack yet difficult to defend. In this way, even if the summoned Goblin Legion retained their inherent animosity towards him, he could swiftly eliminate and subjugate them. Soon, the two men discovered an expansive hollow in the falling Phoenix Ridge. This hollow was well surrounded by excellent cover, providing significant advantages for both ranged classes launching attacks from above and cavalry charges. Lu Yu nodded in satisfaction, then proceeded to establish defenses around the hollow. The entire force of 40,000 specters was summoned, ready to strike at any moment. Finally, the Goblin General was called forth by Lu Yu, activating the skill to summon 1,000 troops. In the center of the hollow, a legion of goblins gradually materialized. As Lu Yu observed, he suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with this legion. In his eyes, these goblins appeared largely indistinguishable, a horde of green-skinned beings with little to differentiate them. Yet, he was struck by an uncanny recognition. Upon seeing the commander at the forefront of this legion, the source of his familiarity became clear. The commander bore the ID of just 2 characters, Mao. Was this not the very goblin commander who had led the assault on Lingfeng City? Moreover, this was not merely a projection, but the actual entity. Mao felt a surge of confusion. He sensed the summoning from the Goblin General and, along with his entire legion, was transported to this location. This summoning was unilateral and could not be refused. Once summoned, their only course of action was to heed the Goblin General's commands and prepare for battle. However, as the summoning concluded, Mao was astonished to find himself within human territory. The Goblin General could not possibly be among the humans, so why had his legion been summoned here? Furthermore, he saw no sign of the Goblin General nearby, intensifying his sense of impending danger. Consequently, immediately after the summoning, he ordered his entire legion to enter a state of heightened alert, ready for combat at a moment's notice. As he surveyed the surroundings and assessed the terrain, his sense of crisis escalated to its peak. Drawing upon his years of combat experience, he realized that in such terrain, if someone intended to harm them, a mere half of their forces could annihilate the entire legion. They could not remain here any longer. Mao promptly commanded the legion to utilize their return scrolls. The Goblin General would not have summoned them to such a perilous location without reason. However, No sooner had he issued his command than countless arrows and spells rained down from the heights, striking into the heart of the legion. The widespread assault abruptly thrust the entire Goblin Legion into a state of battle readiness, interrupting their retreat. Moreover, the arrows and spells specifically targeted the priests, mages, and archers positioned at the rear of the legion. In a single volley of bombardment, half of the offensive and supportive forces within the Goblin Legion were annihilated. Ma Ao was taken aback, realizing that the enemy had evidently been well prepared, and their numbers were at least double that of his own legion. Before Ma Ao could respond further, a second volley struck, accompanied by an onslaught of 8,000 iron steeds. The Underworld clan? Ma Ao was momentarily stunned. How could a fully formed Underworld army exist on human territory, and it appeared to consist of elite soldiers? However, he quickly regained his composure, recognizing that in these times, such a scenario could only imply one possibility: Qing Xiao, the abyssal summoner of the human race. Lu Yu gazed upon the Goblin Legion below, a smile creeping upon his lips. Ma Ao, the supreme commander who had orchestrated the entire battle of Lingfeng City, now stood before him. Although it had been merely his projection at the North Gate, Lu Yu believed that the true capabilities of this commander would be no less formidable than that of his projection. Previously, at the North Gate, Lu Yu had lamented his lack of a legion commander despite possessing summoned beasts. He had set his sights on Ma Ao, the one who had manipulated the entirety of Lingfeng City and ultimately led Lu Yu to the brink of despair was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate for his legion commander. Regrettably, in the end, Lu Yu had been swiftly eliminated by Ming Hun, that abyssal archer, preventing him from subjugating Ma Ao. Now, with Ma Ao's projection gone, his true self stood right before him. How could Lu Yu not feel exhilarated? He had confirmed that the summoned Goblin Legion retained its original hostile state. Nevertheless, it mattered little, for he was fully prepared. Under the assault of the two Underworld Legions, the Goblin Legion had no chance of survival. The black-headed eagle circled overhead, fixated solely on Ma Ao. To avert any unforeseen incidents, such as self-destruct abilities, Lu Yu ordered the eagle to focus exclusively on Ma Ao. The battle was not expected to yield any surprises. Lu Yu's only concern was whether this commander possessed any means of forcibly escaping. Ultimately, Lu Yu was quite satisfied. No unexpected events transpired. The Goblin Legion fought until the very last moment, yet they did not alter their fate of becoming Lu Yu's summoned beasts. Meanwhile, within the Goblin ranks, the general seated in the Grand Hall suddenly opened his eyes wide, his gaze ablaze with fury. Chapter 331. The fury of the Goblin General. As the supreme leader of the Goblin race, the Goblin General was incensed beyond measure. He had long harbored resentment over his projection being captured by the Abyssal Summoner. He had never anticipated that a level 30 avatar could be vanquished by a human who was barely even level 10. Yet, if he were to reflect on his regrets, he found none. Due to its prior knowledge of the Abyssal Summoner's emergence among the human race, it exchanged this intelligence with various other races for substantial benefits. This led to the subsequent series of actions taken against Lu Yu by these races. Moreover, the projection he created had not even reached the first transition. The only relatively powerful ability he bestowed upon that projection was the Horn of War, albeit a diminished version that only amplified effects on goblins. However, to his utter astonishment, today his projection broke through to the first transition, evolving the Summon Thousand skill to a semi-complete state. Just moments ago, the Goblin General distinctly sensed that his projection had utilized the Summon Thousand skill to forcibly withdraw a legion from his tribe. He found himself utterly powerless to prevent this. Although it was the projection employing the skill, it still bore his indelible mark. After unifying the entire Goblin tribe, the Goblin General had forcibly branded the entire race, which led to the Summon Thousands ability. Upon realizing that a legion had been summoned away, the Goblin General's immediate reaction was to summon them back, determined to prevent any opportunity for Qing Jiao to bolster his strength. The legion summoned by the projection was random, but as the original, the Goblin General could summon with precision. Yet, when he attempted to do so, he discovered that the summoned legion had already lost its mark. In other words, the mark upon them no longer belonged to the Goblin General's essence. This was what incensed the supreme commander of the Goblin race the most. His own projection had not only slipped from his control, but was also contesting for dominion over it. In fact, in certain aspects, the projection had even triumphed in this struggle. The Goblin General's hand tightened around the armrest of his steel-crafted chair, gradually indenting the solid metal. He forced himself to regain composure. At this moment, he could not enter the human realm to extinguish his wayward projection personally. Thus, it meant that this projection could summon a Goblin Legion each day, a notion he found utterly intolerable. Come forth. Instantly, several figures materialized within the Grand Hall. General, how many of those abyssal professionals can be spared? In response, the voice of Ming Hun echoed. Lord Ming Hun is currently on standby, but he has just been repelled by the humans and cannot return in the short term. Is there no one else? Lord Feng Yin will also be stepping down in the next few days. Very well, inform Feng Yin that upon his return, he is to visit the humans and resolve the matter of my projection left among them. Understood. There is one more thing. Issue a decree to all legions that I will not be summoning them in the near future, if they are summoned. They are to immediately take their own lives. The shadows exchanged glances, each catching a glimpse of horror in the other's eyes. Yet, in the next moment, they felt the seething gaze of the goblin general directed at them. They dared not hesitate, hurriedly bowing. Yes, General. Enough, be gone. Several dark figures, seemingly relieved, vanished, leaving the grand hall once again occupied solely by the goblin general. He leaned back against the chair behind him, releasing a soft sigh. Oh, abyss. Why must the human race require no servitude? The hall echoed with silence, and no one responded to his lament. After a moment, the goblin general growled fiercely. Thus, the human race must perish. At the sunken valley, only Mao remained of the Mao Legion. As an 85-level second transformation commander, he found himself unable to break through the encirclement. Yet he would not be easily vanquished in the immediate future. The Phantom Cavalry continued their relentless charges. With each assault, Mao claimed the lives of dozens of Phantom Cavalry, but his own health dwindled with each encounter. It was only a matter of time before he would meet his demise. Mao's strength lay in battlefield command. He possessed no remarkable skills, hence he could only strive to vanquish his foes. Deep down, he was aware that such acts of slaughter bore no fruit. For the human perched high above, the abyss summoner of the human race, could merely resurrect the summoned beasts he had slain. Nevertheless, Mao was unwilling to surrender. Even in death, he sought to demonstrate his loyalty to the goblin general. What perplexed him was why he and his legion had been summoned to human territory. The ability to summon legions was a skill reserved solely for the goblin general. They could only be summoned by him. Yet now, it was a human who had called them forth. Mao's health continued to dwindle. Should he endure a few more assaults from the cavalry, he would be utterly slain. He was the last one remaining on the battlefield, with no chance to be killed and return to the goblin clan. Despair consumed Mao. At that moment, he suddenly spotted a towering and familiar figure standing beside the abyss summoner on the high ground. It was the goblin general. Mao's face contorted in shock. How could the general be entangled with humans? Had he forged an alliance with them? Were they merely sacrificial pawns? No, that was not the general's true form. It was merely his projection. In that instant, Mao comprehended why he and his comrades had found themselves here. This projection of the general possessed the skill to summon legions. Did this imply that in the future, the goblin race would frequently witness legions perishing as they had? Mao's face turned ashen. He wished to warn those who would come after him, but at present, he was powerless. A rock plummeted from the void, taking with it the last vestige of his health. Lu Yu retracted his staff, feeling quite pleased. Not only did he conquer an entire goblin army, but he now finally possesses a second-tier summoned beast. Lu Yu summoned Mao, who immediately knelt on one knee, exclaiming, "Greetings, my master." Lu Yu nodded in satisfaction, declaring, "From now on, the goblin army under my command shall be led by you." "Yes, thank you, master." Mao responded with an expression of unwavering loyalty, neither joyful nor sorrowful. Chapter 332. Forging. Lu Yu and the pure-hearted youth returned to the village. The news that the Lord of the Abyss had established a territory, complete with a teleportation array and a spring, had spread. Furthermore, Lu Yu had announced in the guild group that he would await the arrival of guild members in the Lord of the Abyss's territory, offering to forge equipment for them at a reduced price. As for the equipment available for forging, Lu Yu opened the chat with dreamy Jiangnan. "Jiangnan, have you finished your alchemy? I am wrapping things up." "Guild leader, my alchemy level is just a hair's breadth away from reaching the earth tier," came the reply. "Excellent. I have a task for you. Go to Wu Tianju, my mentor in that side profession, and bring back some usable forging blueprints." "Huh. But Master Wu hasn't recovered yet. Will he agree to give them to me? What is his current state?" "He is still tied to the bed, but he seems to be chatting quite happily with that little fellow known as Sudden Wealth." "Well, there you have it." "Huh. He's tied up, and you're still worried about whether he will agree?" "Oh, I understand now. Guild leader, just wait for me." A moment later, a graceful figure appeared at the teleportation array in the territory. Dreamy Jiangnan, clutching a stack of blueprints, excitedly ran towards Lu Yu. "Guild leader, I don't understand these blueprints, but I took all of Master Wu's blueprints." He just stared at me in disbelief and didn't say anything. Lu Yu grinned. This young girl was even bolder than himself. He merely wished for her to procure a few useful ones, yet she brought them all. Wu Tianju could only stare. Being tied up, what could he say? However, regarding dreamy Jiangnan's brazen actions, Lu Yu could only express 4 words. "Well done." This old man was usually quite stingy. Every time Lu Yu requested blueprints, he would dawdle for ages. Now, it was no longer necessary to ask him. The blueprints had come directly to him. After all, he was his disciple, so it could be considered an early transmission of knowledge. Lu Yu affectionately ruffled dreamy Jiangnan's clever little head, then took the blueprints and examined them one by one. Cast iron axe, black iron, bright silver sword, silver, lazy chest armor, plain, sluggish boots, bronze. As Lu Yu scrutinized these blueprints, his expression grew increasingly grim. Was this truly the kind of blueprint one would expect from a celestial tier blacksmith? Lu Yu had already perused more than half of the blueprints, yet not a single one for a golden piece of equipment had emerged. The finest among them was merely a silver weapon, the bright silver sword. Silver equipment? Such relics have become obsolete, even for dogs. The thought of Lu Yu presenting this collection of substandard blueprints to his guild members for crafting was utterly mortifying. He found himself questioning whether that old curmudgeon, Wu Tianju, had been deliberately guarding against his attempts to pilfer his blueprints, thus only possessing such worthless items. Reflecting on Ru Ming Jiangnan's account, where she mentioned Wu Tianju's silence and mere glaring when she took the blueprints, it dawned on him that his lack of response might not have stemmed from impotent rage over the theft, but rather from the notion that one could take such trivial blueprints at will. He would simply smile and remain silent. Taking a deep breath, Lu Yu acknowledged the old man's cunning. Yet, he remained undeterred, continuing to sift through the blueprints one by one. At last, 3 blueprints captured his attention: the Starlight Ring, diamond; the Windslayer's Sword, diamond; and the Celestial Staff, diamond. All 3 were diamond grade, and their required materials were primarily sourced from the recent Goldstone Secret Realm. Studying these blueprints, Lu Yu smacked his lips. It seemed the old man still possessed a modicum of conscience, having prepared these for him in advance. His efforts to help Wu Tianju regain his clarity had not been in vain. With these 3 blueprints in hand, Lu Yu felt a wave of relief wash over him. At the very least, he could now substantiate the boasts he had made in the guild. He sought out a spacious area, arranging several tables and chairs from the castle, and settled down. For the remainder of the day, he resolved to craft equipment for his guild members. As the guild leader, it was not ideal to remain absent from guild activities for extended periods. This occasion provided a perfect opportunity to meet the members. Even if he might not remember many of their names, perhaps he would struggle to recall even one, but that was inconsequential. The primary aim was to let them see him. Soon, the teleportation array in the square emitted a bright light, and several figures materialized. Lu Yu recognized them immediately, the veteran members who had joined the guild early on, including Pu Qinzhou and Betty Bear. Upon emerging from the teleportation array, they began to scan the surroundings in search of Lu Yu's presence. Upon spotting them, Ru Ming Jiangnan waved enthusiastically and called out, "Over here. Come quickly." Strictly speaking, Ru Ming Jiangnan was part of the same cohort as Pu Qinzhou and the others, being among the original 50 members. Although she often accompanied Lu Yu on his endeavors, her rapport with Pu Qinzhou and the others had remained strong. Hearing Ru Ming Jiangnan's voice, Pu Qinzhou immediately turned towards it and soon spotted Lu Yu seated with his companions. He rushed over with his group, exclaiming, "Guild leader. Haha, I heard you were personally crafting equipment this time, so I brought my team and left 3 minutes early. Haha, I want to be the first to acquire the latest gear." Observing the exhilaration of the determined individual, Lu Yu could not help but smile. He had crafted 3 exquisite samples: the Windslayer's Sword, enhanced with attack power and critical strike chance, suitable for the vast majority of warrior classes; the Celestial Staff, imbued with magical strength, mana regeneration, and casting speed, applicable to all mage professions; and although the archers lacked a fitting piece of equipment, they could opt for the evenly attributed Starlight Ring. Lu Yu gestured towards the 3 samples, inquiring which one he wished to forge. Noticing that all 3 were diamond-grade items, the determined individual's eyes sparkled with delight. Currently, mainstream equipment consisted of gold-grade items, while elite players possessed a few dark gold pieces. Diamond-grade equipment was a rarity, reserved for the most exceptional players. Indeed, Lu Yu, adorned with several heavenly-grade items, had transcended the realm of ordinary players. "Leader, may I have them all?" he asked eagerly. "All? Well, as long as you possess sufficient, or it is feasible. However, as a warrior, what do you require a staff for?" Lu Yu replied with a chuckle. The determined individual merely grinned foolishly in silence. Nearby, Betty the Bear chimed in, "This fellow is quite the lucky one. Having found a girlfriend in our guild who is 12 years his junior." Lu Yu could not suppress a smile. It appeared that, unbeknownst to him, relationships had blossomed among the guild members. Such developments were, of course, welcome news to him. "Very well, I shall forge all 3 for you. And I won't charge you for the labor. Consider it an early congratulation. Just ensure you don't let her down. Rest assured, leader, I am not that kind of person." Chapter 333. Adoptive father Lu Yu accepted the ore from the determined individual, unfurled the blueprints, and commenced the forging process. He meticulously placed the corresponding ores in their designated positions. However, unlike before, the crafting of dark gold items required an additional mastery of temperature control. This necessitated Lu Yu's direct manipulation during the forging process. Fortunately, it was not overly complicated. Lu Yu's quick reflexes aided him well. Though there were moments when he nearly miscalibrated the temperature, he ultimately succeeded in crafting all 3 pieces of equipment, each a flawless diamond-grade item. With a sigh of relief, Lu Yu acknowledged that the blueprints for diamond equipment held the potential to yield dark gold items, and thus, even the possibility of earthly-grade items. He did not aspire to craft earthly-grade items. He simply hoped to avoid mistakenly producing dark gold equipment. After all, he had declared in the guild that the items he was forging would be diamond-grade from the outset. If the first item turned out to be merely dark gold, it would be quite an embarrassment for him as the guild leader. The determined individual clutched the crafted equipment, inspecting it from all angles, loath to part with it. "Hee. Leader, could you forge me one more ring?" he implored. "I say, determined one, will you ever be satisfied? There are others waiting behind you." Betty the bear called out in dissatisfaction from the back of the line. He had initially been a shy individual, plagued by social anxiety. But having grown familiar with the determined individual and others, he had momentarily cast aside his timidity. In a moment of light-hearted banter, the playful banter between the characters reveals their camaraderie. Breaking through the tension, one character, known as Ofuchinjo, shifts his position while acknowledging that his previous request may have been a tad excessive. The group had gathered substantial rewards from the gold and stone secret realm, with each member's backpack containing enough materials to craft 5 or 6 pieces of equipment. However, Luyu had previously stated that he would only craft 2 pieces from 3 available blueprints, and the 3 pieces he had just forged for Ofuchinjo were already a notable exception. If everyone sought to forge all their ores, Luyu would be overwhelmed, unable to finish in 2 days and nights. Bai Di, a bear cub, stepped forward and said, "Leader, I also lack a girlfriend. Could you assist me in crafting 2 rings?" Luyu nodded, recognizing that crafting rings was the simplest among the 3 pieces of equipment. The time taken to create 2 rings was comparable to that of forging a wind-piercing sword. Soon, the 2 rings took shape. Just as Luyu was about to hand them to Bai Di, the cub rubbed his paws together and added, "Leader, I noticed that had you engrave his girlfriend's name on his ring, could you inscribe one of these with S name instead? We truly support their budding romance, and it would be fitting for them to have matching couple S rings." Luyu glanced at Bai Di, who appeared somewhat bashful, and was pleasantly surprised by his thoughtfulness. He engraved S name on one of the rings before presenting them to Bai Di. "I didn't find suitable blueprints for archers this time. Let us wait until next time. I will ensure to compensate the archers in our guild. Leader, you are too modest. Your willingness to dedicate your time to craft equipment for us is already greatly appreciated, especially considering they are diamond tier. That is beside the point. As the leader, there are certain responsibilities that I must uphold. Please relay my intentions to the archers in our guild." "Absolutely, leader. We eagerly await your next creations." Meanwhile, Chinju, accompanied by a group from the Abyss Lords Guild, emerged from the teleportation array. Upon seeing and Bai Di flaunting their newly acquired gear, he launched into a tirade. "You two didn't seize the opportunity, and now you blame us?" Exchanging amused glances, Bai Di and laughed heartily. "You didn't seize the moment. Who else can you blame? The last 5 minutes were already free for all, yet you still lingered for those last 2 small monsters." "Humph," Chinju scoffed, rallying his group to line up behind him. Bai Di, holding the 2 rings, laughed as he departed. "Bochan, look what your father has brought you." "Say that again. What did you call me?" "My dear son, are you questioning me?" Bai Di displayed the ring engraved with S name, eliciting a dramatic response from the other. "Oh my foster father, please accept my humble bow." Luyu watched the playful antics unfold, a smile blossoming on his face as he reveled in their camaraderie. At such moments, Luyu finds himself in a state of tranquility, momentarily free from the contemplation of the Abyss's arrival and the invasion of foreign races, solely focused on crafting the equipment at hand. The line behind him grows increasingly lengthy. There is no need for anyone to maintain order here, as even those closest to Luyu obediently queue up behind him. Observing the gear received by the brothers at the front, the anticipation among those at the back intensifies. Among the Abyssal Lord's forces, comprising 13,000 individuals, including 3 subguilds, 8,000 are currently waiting in this small square, while the remaining 5,000 have spilled into the alleys of the encampment due to space constraints. With 13,000 individuals, each requiring 2 pieces of equipment, this amounts to a staggering 26,000 items, a monumental challenge for Luyu. Since his appointment as a blacksmith, he has crafted fewer than 26,000 pieces in total. This formidable task leads him to question whether a full day and night would suffice. However, as he gazes upon the lengthy queue behind him, with no one departing, he suddenly perceives that producing 26,000 pieces may not be as insurmountable as it initially seemed. Moreover, the forging process is governed by a proficiency mechanism. The more one forges the same item, the higher their proficiency becomes, resulting in increased speed and quality. Hence, those who receive their equipment earlier do not necessarily enjoy a significant advantage, as the probability of obtaining high-quality items increases for those further back in line. In fact, the last individuals may even acquire exceptional gear. A few members from allied guilds who have also taken up the role of blacksmith are acutely aware of this dynamic. They deliberately position themselves at the end of the queue, gambling on their luck to see if they might procure an exceptional piece. Luyu's hands remain in constant motion as he engages in brief conversations with each guild member approaching him for equipment crafting, striving to remember their names. Given the sheer number of 13,000 individuals, it is impossible for Luyu to memorize them all. He can only aim to leave a faint impression for future encounters. Each guild member who converses with him does so with a sense of trepidation. Most players perceive Luyu as stern, authoritative, and unapproachable, even harboring notions of bloodshed. After all, the majority have not had the opportunity for close encounters with him, including members of the Abyssal Lords Guild. Their leader often engages in grand exploits. Aside from the initial cohort of veterans, most members who joined over a month ago have yet to lay eyes on Luyu. Reflecting on Lu Yu's journey from the novice village, where he unleashed the waters of the spring, to Lingfeng City, where he vanquished all bosses outside the city, only to subsequently disappear for a time and return to confront a million players, emerging victorious, and more recently, single-handedly holding back an army of over 200,000 goblins. It is evident why many regard their guild leader with awe. Yet, after a few exchanges today, they discover that he possesses a surprisingly approachable demeanor. Chapter 334. Birthday. The sun sets and rises anew. A day has passed, and the production of 26,000 pieces of equipment has proven to be an impossible task within such a short span. However, progress is being made, as only a handful of individuals remain in line. At the end of the queue stands Yu Shiwu, accompanied by Chen Zhu, who is not here merely to queue again, but rather to engage in conversation with Yu Shiwu. Lu Yu's pace has begun to wane. After a day and night of monotonous labor, even the most resilient body begins to tire. Nevertheless, he musters his remaining strength to forge the last pieces of equipment for the remaining patrons. The game's energy expenditure is minimal, and when activity is not particularly vigorous, it can even be likened to a light slumber. Yet, Lu Yu finds himself utterly exhausted, yearning for a proper rest. Chen Zhu approaches him and suggests, "Brother Yu, why don't you log off and catch some sleep? You're not in red status anymore, and we have our territory now. I doubt anything significant will happen soon. Take some time to relax, don't overexert yourself." Lu Yu gazes at Chen Zhu, his eyelids heavy. However, Chen Zhu's reasoning holds merit. Since the abyss opened its doors, or rather, since his rebirth, he has not enjoyed a single uninterrupted moment of rest. Now, after achieving a semblance of victory against the foreign races, he could afford to take a brief respite. "All right, I shall log off now. You all can manage the affairs within the guild," Lu Yu replies. "By the way, Yu Shiwu, I have prepared the territorial planning map. Please review it and suggest any improvements before we commence construction." "Understood, Brother Yu." With that, Lu Yu clicks to exit, and darkness envelopes him as the game pod opens. It is morning, and he heads to the bathroom for a quick rinse. Drawing the curtains, he collapses onto his bed. Sleep, under the oppressive weight of the abyss, has become a rare luxury for Lu Yu. Today, he indulges in this luxury without setting an alarm or relying on anyone to wake him. He sleeps freely, not caring when he might awaken. Time passes unmeasured until Lu Yu suddenly feels someone massaging him. It begins with his feet, then his limbs, followed by his back, and finally, a soothing treatment for his head. In a state of semi-consciousness, he allows the person to tend to him. Reassured by the knowledge that he is in the villa of Dongxing Huafu, protected by Sun Ruekong, and therefore unconcerned about potential threats. After all, who would send an assassin to provide a thorough massage before an attack? As Lu Yu revels in this unexpected pampering, he suddenly feels a hand graze his waist, followed by the sensation of his remaining undergarments slipping down. Startled, he opens his eyes to find a young girl, her demeanor tentative, hastily retracting her hand and glancing around in embarrassment. Who else could it be but an innocent young girl? "Master, have you awakened?" The voice came from above Lu Yu's head. He looked up, first encountering two perfectly sized little white rabbits obscuring his view, and then another familiar face, Ru Meng Jiangnan. It was only then that Lu Yu realized he was resting on Ru Meng Jiangnan's legs, the young girl gently massaging the acupoints on his head. Hee. "I noticed you looked quite fatigued, so I thought I would help you relax, but I didn't expect to wake you," she said. Lu Yu sat up, reflecting on the peculiar position he had been in. To his surprise, it was this young girl who had been administering the massage. "Master, how do you find my technique?" Ru Meng Jiang then inquired eagerly. Lu Yu touched his nose and cleared his throat. Quite good. I didn't anticipate you had such skills in massage." Upon hearing his praise, Ru Meng Jiang then beamed with joy. "After my father asked me to drop out of school, I went to a foot massage shop to learn." She chuckled. "I'm glad you like it." Clenching her little fist, she silently encouraged herself, recalling her vow to be the master's little stress relief assistant. Today marked her first step towards that goal. "Brother, why do you only praise her and not me? I've been helping you with the massage too," complained the pure innocent youth. Lu Yu shot him an irritated glance. "What you did cannot be called a massage. It's more of an indecency." This pure innocent youth had grown increasingly audacious, leading Lu Yu to suspect that one day, if he were to become paralyzed, this girl might even climb onto him and forcefully do something inappropriate. "What time is it now? How long have I slept?" Lu Yu gradually regained his awareness. "It's 5 a.m., master. You've been asleep for nearly 24 hours. Has it been that long?" He pondered. With such an extensive duration, he could have leveled up at least once or twice. Moreover, the Goblin General's summoning of thousands of troops had long been ready. Yesterday, he had been preoccupied with forging equipment and forgotten this matter. He could not afford to overlook it again. Forgetting once meant a loss of 20,000 goblins, an immense amount of experience and summoned beasts. With these thoughts, Lu Yu rose and dressed, preparing to return to the game pod. The pure innocent youth and Ru Meng Jiang then hurriedly stopped him. "Brother, master, wait a moment. What is it?" The two girls exchanged smiles, but remained silent, seemingly waiting for something. Lu Yu felt perplexed. Their demeanor today seemed off, as if they were concealing something from him. He recalled that even before he logged off, Zhu's expression had been unusual. At that moment, The door swung open, and Chunju entered, carrying a large cake, with Wu Shiwu following closely behind. And then Sun Ruekong trailing in their wake. You go, master, brother, happy birthday. Upon witnessing this scene, Lu Yu was momentarily taken aback, and then he couldn't help but chuckle and shake his head. Without question, this must be Chunju's idea, among everyone. Only he knows his own birthday. In fact, even he has forgotten the date. With this thought, tears involuntarily streamed down Lu Yu's cheeks. You all. Lu Yu turned around and accepted the cake, saying, thank you. Chapter 335. The artisan's task. The birthday celebration did not last long. It was nearing its end before dawn. Suddenly, Wu Zheng recalled something and spoke up. You go. It seems we have never leveled up together. Lu Yu pondered for a moment and realized this was indeed the case. Since entering the abyss, he initially led Wu Zheng in leveling up, later taking Chunju and Pure Youth under his wing. Aside from large guild activities, the five of them had never formed a team together. You go. How about we log on and team up to level up? It's been ages since I've experienced the exhilarating sensation of rapid level advancement. Lu Yu nodded. The suggestion was quite appealing. However, if we all go out to level up, especially with the handsome guys and Wu Zheng, there will be no one left to manage the guild. Lu Yu waved his hand dismissively. There shouldn't be any urgent matters recently. The Yomi clan has gone silent, the goblins have suffered a severe blow, and other factions are also quiet. Taking a break now shouldn't pose a significant problem. Even if something arises, the Breaking the Boat team can handle it on their own. The Abyss Lord cannot simply abandon us for even a day. Everyone nodded in agreement. Then, does anyone have a good leveling spot? It's rare for us to team up. We ought to find a map that matches our strength. A moment of silence fell over the group. Within both Lingfeng City and Jui City, there were indeed formidable maps, which, under normal circumstances, the entire guild would struggle to conquer. However, with Lu Yu in the party, the dynamics changed. Given their leader's combat prowess, everyone felt that the high-level maps they had in mind were inadequate in comparison. Since they had resolved to indulge in a thrilling experience, they needed a fitting map. At that moment, Chunju hesitantly raised his hand. Everyone. I actually possess a map that has never been explored. The difficulty should be considerable, but I am unsure of the specifics. What map? Speak quickly. Chunju instinctively reached into his pocket, fumbling for a long time before realizing this was not a game, and he could not produce items. He could only smile awkwardly and cough to cover his embarrassment. Ahem. A couple of days ago, Yuga gave me a piece of the Insight Order, which contains the hidden side quest of the artisan. Lu Yu nodded. He had intended to assist Ru Mengjiang Nan with her job transition before taking Zhuzi to complete the employment task. Who would have anticipated that Ru Mengjiang Nan's transition task would yield nothing, but they would encounter the Goblin Siege instead, which had delayed everything until now. Yesterday, I could no longer resist and began the clandestine mission, subsequently receiving a rescue task. Is it challenging? Will it suffice for us to engage in it for an entire day? Primarily, will it be enough to satiate our leader? The description suggests it is no simple endeavor. The task specifically advises bringing ample assistance, lest we risk never returning. The difficulty of such a quest is evidently high. Typically, ordinary tasks do not necessitate the reminder to gather companions. At least, since Lu Yu entered the game, he has yet to encounter such a stipulation. However, there is a concern. This map lies not within the realms of the Unity City or Lingfeng City, but rather within the confines of the Cold Winter City. It is a place known as the Ice Cave of Death, yet no coordinates have been provided, leaving me unaware of its location. This indeed poses a dilemma, as Lu Yu had not engaged much in activities within the Cold Winter City in his previous life. Should it have been a renowned large map, he might have retained some recollection, but this Ice Cave of Death is entirely unfamiliar to him. I may not know the Ice Cave of Death, but I am aware of a location called the Land of Eternal Cold, spoke Sun Ruekong. The group then realized he was a player from Cold Winter City, and naturally, it would be more appropriate to consult Sun Ruekong regarding their journey there. Is there a time constraint on this rescue mission? Yes, but the time frame is quite generous, 1 week. It has barely been 24 hours since the task was issued, so we have ample time. 1 week for a rescue mission? Is the person in need of rescue on vacation? Nonetheless, no one desires a task to be conducted in haste. Having sufficient time is undoubtedly the most favorable circumstance. Let us finish our cake and then log in. We will gather at the teleportation array in Unity City and proceed together to Cold Winter City. I will await you at the teleportation array in Cold Winter City. The group hastened their pace in eating before retreating to their respective rooms. Lu Yu, unable to resist, indulged in an extra slice of cake. Having relied solely on nutrient solutions to sustain his bodily functions, he had not savored real food for quite some time. Now, the experience was truly delightful. Often, consuming food transcends mere sustenance. The pleasure derived from culinary delights is paramount. Among all activities that can elicit happiness, indulging in exquisite cuisine is undoubtedly one of the simplest pleasures to achieve. As for the other, well, perhaps one should extend gratitude to one's right hand. After finishing the final bite of cake, Lu Yu returned to his room, wiped his mouth, and logged in. A flash of white light enveloped him, and he materialized in Unity City. At this moment, the city was bustling with activity. Ever since Lu Yu attracted players with the Golden Stone Secret Realm, the special potions, equipment, and provisions available within the city had captivated the players' attention. While the prices were not inexpensive, the quality of the offerings was indeed commendable. Should one opt to spend less on inferior goods, risking defeat at a crucial moment, or invest a bit more gold in superior items that would ensure survival and facilitate leveling up? For most, the choice was rather straightforward. Moreover, the men soon discovered that there were indeed firearms available for purchase at the blacksmith shop. Although they were of the slow-firing variety, they were still guns, items that, in reality, were virtually impossible to acquire, let alone behold. This revelation sent a throng of eager individuals rushing towards the blacksmith's establishment. Firearms were not for sale. They could only be obtained as complimentary gifts after reaching an exorbitant expenditure. Nevertheless, this did not quell the men's fervent desire for the weapon, as a staggering quarter of the consumption within the city was driven by the allure of firearms. Fortunately, before Wu Tianju succumbed to madness, he had crafted a substantial number of guns. Otherwise, the initial 100 or so that Lu Yu had brought forth would have long since proven inadequate. Recalling Wu Tianju, Lu Yu made a detour to the Lord's mansion. After exchanging greetings with Sun Hanyu, he proceeded to Wu Tianju's sick room, only to find the old man absent. However, the sound of hammering resonated from the courtyard. Could it be that the old man had already devised the Barrett? A surge of delight filled Lu Yu's heart as he hurried to the back. Upon entering, he beheld Huan, hammer in hand, fervently striking the anvil, exclaiming his ambition to amass wealth. As a player, he eschewed the automated forging apparatus provided by the system, opting instead for the labor of his own hands, a determination that deeply impressed Lu Yu. Yet, he refrained from inquiring about his reasoning, for he already anticipated the answer. Only through the act of crafting could one discern the flaws in the equipment, thus paving the way for further refinement. Those who are passionate about their pursuits often adhere to such tenets. Wealth accumulation was emblematic of such individuals. Lu Yu then glanced toward the side of Huan, where a post stood. Bound to it was the old man, Wu Tianju. Lu Yu pursed his lips, initially believing that the old man had recovered, only to find him in the same state, the only distinction being that his bed had been replaced by the post, allowing the bed a moment's respite. Approaching, Lu Yu noted that neither Wu Tianju nor Huan acknowledged his presence. They remained engrossed in their respective tasks. Observing the blueprints on the table, Lu Yu discerned numerous modifications, rendering the content inscrutable even to him. It appeared that the two had been diligently occupied these past days, transitioning from theory to practice. If all proceeded smoothly, it wouldn't be long before they produced the first piece of modern equipment from the game. Choosing not to disturb them, Lu Yu stood by for a moment before departing. He had noticed that Huan's secondary profession had shifted from armorer to blacksmith, indicating that Wu Tianju had facilitated his friend's class change. The ability to assist in such transitions suggested that Wu Tianju's condition had improved, at least to the extent that he could maintain lucidity during certain moments. This revelation brought a sense of relief to Lu Yu, prompting him to make his way to the location of the teleportation array. Chapter 336. The unfortunate tongue. Upon arriving at the teleportation array, Chenju, the unworldly and innocent youth, along with the enchanting figures of pure-hearted youth and dreaming Jiangnan, awaited their arrival. The higher-ups of the Abyss Lord faction simultaneously emerged near the teleportation array, drawing a multitude of players who paused to observe. Many sought to forge connections with the foremost guild, Abyss Lord. Additionally, the presence of the two lovely young women, pure-hearted youth and dreaming Jiangnan, further captivated the attention of numerous admirers. Look, there's pure-hearted youth. Such a figure, such a face, such a presence. Oh, her voice. One exclaimed, utterly smitten. Yet, I find myself more enamored with dreaming Jiangnan. She exudes a delicate charm, reminiscent of a sweet neighborly girl, and her physique is quite commendable as well. I have a friend who claims to have encountered dreaming Jiangnan at a foot massage parlor, another chimed in. Really? How could that be? Indeed, about a year ago, at the largest foot massage establishment in one city. Oh, what was the cost? $268. Quite a bargain, isn't it? Just $268 for such beauty. $268 is merely the foot massage fee. My friend mentioned that the girl herself wasn't for sale. He offered up to $1,000. Huh. In this day and age, in such places, who isn't for sale? It's merely a matter of whether the offer is sufficient. I dare say, despite her current appearance, if she were in a massage parlor and a little more money was presented, she would willingly comply. Certainly. Don't be fooled by her innocent facade. She has likely been through the ringer long before this. As Lu Yu strolled past the two men, their conversation reached his ears, causing his expression to darken and his brows to furrow as he turned to face them. What are you staring at? Looking for a fight? The two men, noticing Lu Yu's unfriendly gaze, began to bristle. Who do you think you are, pretty boy? Keep staring, and I'll pluck your eyes out and turn them into marbles. Yet, the man fell silent mid-sentence as he noticed that the individual he had just insulted had unmasked his hidden ID, revealing the glaring name Qing Jiu before him. Swallowing hard, the man's heart raced. The person he had just derided was indeed Qing Jiu. Wasn't he a criminal? How had he entered the city? And where was his notoriety? The surrounding crowd began to revel in the unfolding drama, although they were as clueless as to why Qing Jiu's infamy had vanished. It did not deter them from enjoying the spectacle. Lu Yu approached the two men with deliberate steps, causing their legs to quiver with trepidation. Qingjiu, I must warn you, this is within the city limits. Should you dare to lay a hand on me, the city guards will swiftly apprehend you and toss you into a cell. You wouldn't wish to make an enemy of this secondary main city, would you? With a resounding thud, Lu Yu swung his staff, striking one of the men forcefully. Another man's eyes widened in disbelief. Qingjiu, you're finished. Engaging in conflict within the city will soon earn you a notorious reputation. Just wait for the city guards to apprehend you. Not far away, a squad of guards sprinted towards them. The man who had been knocked aside hurriedly scrambled to his feet and rushed before the guards. Commander, it's him. The one called Qingjiu. He dares to strike someone within the city. You must apprehend him at once. The captain of the guards glanced at the man before him and then at Lu Yu, his expression brightening instantly. Young lord, what brings you here? Oh, it's Zhang San. This individual was none other than Zhang San, the guard who had once stood at the gates of the Gathering Heroes village. He had recently been promoted to captain of the city guards, evidently having risen in rank once more. I just dealt with a few ruffians, Zhang San said, lifting the man sprawled before him and bringing his face into intimate contact with the ground. Another man received the same treatment. Zhang San declared, these two have violated the laws of Gathering Heroes City. According to the regulations, with a level of 10, they shall serve 7 days in prison and are forever barred from entering Gathering Heroes City again. The crowd around them began to murmur. Many had long been displeased with the faces of the two men. Now that the city guards had taken matters into their own hands, numerous people applauded in approval. Lu Yu nodded at Zhang San before continuing towards the teleportation array. Ru Ming Jiangnan rushed over, pleading, Leader, I didn't do anything. Her eyes were reddening, on the verge of tears. If you don't believe me, Leader, you can test it for yourself. I swear I did nothing. Lu Yu gently ruffled Ru Ming Jiangnan's hair. I know. Pay no heed to what they say. They are merely a bunch of blusterers, and in reality, they are just as they appear. Ru Ming Jiangnan nodded obediently. All right, let us be off. Sun Ruikong must be growing anxious. Chapter 337. The chill of cold winter city. The group stepped into the teleportation array, and as the light flashed, they found themselves in a land of ice and snow. The pure-hearted youth instinctively wrapped his arms around himself. Why is it so cold here? Is the teleportation array in Cold Winter City? The climate in Cold Winter City was harsh. Calculating the time, it was still considered summer here. Summer? Chen Zhu's eyes widened in astonishment, doubting whether he had misheard. He was nearly curling into a ball, aware that Cold Winter City would indeed have low temperatures, but he had not anticipated them to be this severe. Wu Shiji rubbed his hands together. Brother Yu was right. Cold Winter City is indeed experiencing summer, or perhaps we should say a warm season. Just days ago, when the goblins besieged the city, Cold Winter City was the fastest to eradicate them. The climate here is intolerable for most, and those goblins only managed to breach the gates by relying on the advantage of a surprise attack. As if in a dream, Jiangnan retrieved several bottles of crimson potions from his backpack and distributed them among everyone. This is the anti-cold potion I concocted. It will alleviate your discomfort. A few individuals promptly uncorked the bottles and drank heartily. Lu Yu consumed one, and as the liquid coursed down his throat into his stomach, he felt a fiery warmth. The potion's efficacy against the cold, unmistakable. Only then did they step out of the teleportation array, where Sun Ruikong had been waiting outside. Upon seeing Lu Yu and the others, he approached them without delay. I just purchased several sets of thermal clothing from the shop. Wearing them should only slightly affect your agility, but will not impair your other attributes. Lu Yu gratefully accepted the garments, aware of their considerable expense. Each set was nearly 10,000 gold coins. It was said that the fabric contained the down of the fire phoenix, making it costly to produce. However, Lu Yu knew that the garments contained not a single fiber of fire phoenix down, but rather a substantial amount of fire rooster feathers, which were still commendable as a fire attribute material. The cost of one set was approximately 5,000 to 6,000 gold coins. And while few would buy them in other major cities, they had been inflated to 10,000 in Cold Winter City. For Lu Yu, this amount was trivial. Yet for Sun Ruikong, the leader of a small guild, it represented a significant expenditure. Understanding the burden Sun Ruikong had taken upon himself, Lu Yu refrained from offering immediate monetary compensation. Once everyone donned the thermal clothing, they felt the chill dissipate. Great Master Qingjiu, there is little of interest to explore in Cold Winter City. Let me lead you directly to the land of eternal cold. Lu Yu nodded, for he was aware of several hidden quests in Cold Winter City, yet he was disinclined to pursue them at that moment. Firstly, he had come to level up and assist Qingjiu with his job change. Secondly, given the time since the server opened, he was uncertain whether those quests still existed and preferred not to waste time. As the group exited Cold Winter City, the atmosphere was unlike that of Lingfeng City or Ju-Yi City, where players were familiar with the tranquil demeanor of others. Although players in Cold Winter City had heard of Lu Yu and the Abyss Lord, very few had actually seen them. Thus, as they walked together through the streets, they failed to attract any attention. In these times, many players formed teams to level up, and this small party of fewer than 10 members was hardly noteworthy. A few individuals did recognize Sun Ruikong, greeting him warmly along the way. Upon leaving Cold Winter City, the temperature dropped a few degrees further. The group had grown accustomed to the frigid air and felt little discomfort. Sun Ruekong intended to take Lu Yu and the others directly to the land of eternal cold. But Lu Yu asked him to pause for a moment. He moved to a less populated area and summoned a multitude of creatures. Sun Ruekong, along with the others, looked on in confusion, though the innocent youth seemed to comprehend Lu Yu's intentions. Lu Yu summoned a goblin general and activated the skill to summon 1,000 troops. A moment later, an entire goblin legion emerged. To Lu Yu's surprise, the legion did not direct their abilities toward him, but instead commenced a fratricidal onslaught among themselves. Initially taken aback, Lu Yu hastily commanded his summoned beasts to attack. However, the goblin legion paid no heed to the enemies charging from the periphery, engrossed solely in their self-inflicted chaos. The battle concluded swiftly. From a 20,000 strong legion, Lu Yu was able to tame fewer than 5,000, and the legion's commander was brutally beaten to death by his own guards in the first moments. Faced with this outcome, Lu Yu clenched his jaw in frustration. It was evident that the goblin general had realized the predicament and issued the order for mutual annihilation. While this was indeed a desperate strategy, it effectively curtailed the increase of Lu Yu's summoned beasts. Each soldier's demise meant the entire legion could be transformed into summoned creatures, a choice that even a fool could discern. Lu Yu, feeling helpless, acknowledged that he must prepare more thoroughly in the future to retain a greater number of goblins. He recalled his summoned beasts and returned to join Sun Ruekong and the others. At that moment, Sun Ruekong's eyes widened. He had only seen snippets of Lu Yu's profession in posts and videos from innocent young girls. Although aware of its potency, witnessing it firsthand today truly conveyed the terror of the situation. The preceding battle had commenced and concluded with remarkable swiftness. This was not a legion war. No 1S legion-level combat could be conducted so carelessly. Moreover, the objectives of both sides were perfectly aligned. Lu Yu aimed to eliminate as many Goblin Legion soldiers as possible, while the Goblin Legion sought to slay as many of their own as they could. The others, accustomed to the chaos, gently nudged the dazed Sun Ruekong, bringing him back to reality. With the trivial matters resolved, let us venture to the Frosty Land. Oh, right, Sun Ruekong nodded, and the group set off anew. Unbeknownst to them, shortly after their departure, the city of Frosty was placed under martial law. The sentries on the watchtower had spotted traces of the Goblin Legion, which quickly vanished. This occurrence mirrored the previous ambush where the Goblin Legion had projected itself to assault Frosty. In the snowy plains, Sun Ruekong led the way, speaking sparingly, only occasionally glancing back to describe the new terrain and creatures. In the biting cold, no one wished to speak much, fearing the warmth within them would escape. Of course, had they been indoors around a fireplace, the atmosphere would have been entirely different, especially with a few bottles of wine, which could easily be considered one of life's most delightful moments. The pace of Lu Yu and his companions was not swift, as the accumulated snow on the ground hindered their ability to run. Initially, upon exiting the city, the snow had been somewhat compacted. However, as they ventured deeper, the number of players dwindled. Eventually, the group found themselves advancing step by step, their speed significantly reduced. Lu Yu summoned several colossal summoned beasts, which, under Sun Ruekong's direction, forged a path ahead, thereby hastening their progress. After traversing for the better part of a day, Sun Ruekong finally spoke. We are approaching the land of deathly cold. The temperatures there plummet even further, and we may lose health every second. I lack effective measures for warmth, so we must be vigilant about consuming potions to restore health. Lu Yu turned to Ru Meng Jiangnan. The young girl immediately produced a collection of herbs and, to the astonishment of the others, began to craft potions by hand on the spot. Soon, dozens of bottles of cold resistance potions materialized in Ru Meng Jiangnan's embrace. I have prepared 10 bottles for myself, each lasting an hour. I have added several potent ingredients. This should prevent us from losing health. The group eagerly accepted the potions, and upon drinking one, they felt an immediate sense of relief, even feeling a bit warm enough to consider shedding their clothing. In truth, even if they were to lose health continuously, it wouldn't pose a significant problem, as the foremost healer of the human race was among them. Nevertheless, it was preferable to avoid the cold if possible. Sun Ruekong also consumed a potion, and his gaze towards Ru Meng Jiangnan grew fervent. Ru Meng, is it possible to mass-produce this potion? In the city of Frostwinter, any apothecary that could sell such potions would undoubtedly be inundated with customers. Ru Meng Jiangnan instantly grasped Sun Ruekong's intention and promptly retrieved a recipe from her backpack. Placing it in his hands, Konggu, this is the recipe for the cold resistance potion. You can simply find a few trustworthy individuals to concoct it. Sun Ruekong hastily waved his hand, attempting to return the recipe. I was merely thinking that if mass production were feasible, our guild could handle the sales. This recipe is too precious to part with. Lu Yu stepped forward and gently pressed the recipe back into Sun Ruekong's hands. Konggu, we all share the same roof. There's no need for such formality. This recipe holds value only in Frostwinter. By taking it and producing the cold resistance potions for sale, you would be contributing to humanity. But, the value of this recipe, Konggu, when you provided us with the cold resistant clothing, we didn't even utter a word of thanks. We don't regard you as an outsider, so please don't be so courteous. Yishur Wuzheng casually placed a hand on Sun Rueikong's shoulder. Indeed, Konggu. If you feel guilty, just stand guard outside UGE's room for a few hours each day. Yishur Wuzheng was the closest to Sun Rueikong, speaking more casually with him. Reluctantly, Sun Rueikong accepted the recipe, recognizing its potential to become a cornerstone industry in Frostwinter. Chapter 338. The Land of Deathly Cold. Having addressed the issue of cold resistance, the group continued onward. They had not walked far when the temperature indeed dropped significantly once more. Where beads of sweat had previously formed on their foreheads, they now felt as if they had entered an ice cellar. Everyone received a system notification. They had entered the perilous map known as the Land of Deathly Cold. The efficacy of the cold-resistant potion became apparent at this moment. Despite the howling winds and swirling snow, the group exhibited no significant physical distress, nor did they suffer from ongoing blood loss. Upon reaching this point, Sun Rueikong ceased to advance. Halting his steps, we have arrived at the Land of Eternal Frost. However, I am uncertain of the precise location of the Ice Cave of Death. We must search for it gradually. As he spoke, Sun Rueikong cast a glance at Lu Yu, who harbored some conjectures in his mind. The Ice Cave of Death was likely a malevolent map hidden within this desolate land. Searching for an entrance to such a malevolent map amidst the vast expanse of the Land of Eternal Frost was akin to finding a needle in a haystack. Yet, this challenge was not insurmountable for Lu Yu. With a single wave of his hand, tens of thousands of spectral warriors materialized instantaneously. They dispersed in all directions, commencing the search for any potential entrances. The summoned beings were all manifestations of his essence, not mere projections. Shortly after their summoning, numbers indicating damage began to appear above their heads. Just as Sun Rueikong had stated, the frigid temperatures of this map could induce continuous blood loss. With so many summoned beings simultaneously losing health, the priests within the Legion might struggle to restore them all. Lu Yu retrieved some wood, coal, and flint from his backpack, summoning goblins to kindle a fire. He beckoned a few individuals to sit with him, then took out some crocodile meat, placing it by the campfire to roast. In the icy wilderness, a circle of individuals gathered around the fire, grilling meat, which offered a refreshing change of pace. With little else to occupy their time, they comfortably settled together. Sun Rueikong took the initiative to share anecdotes from the Winter City, tales of thrill-seekers engaging in peculiar antics in the snow, resulting in their younger siblings being frostbitten. Initially, the individual remained unconcerned, but upon logging off, he realized he could not hold his head high in reality, which sent him into a panic. Unfortunately, by then, the optimal treatment window had long passed. Sun Rueikong's words caused the men present to shift uneasily, hastily consuming another vial of cold-resistant potion to bolster their sense of security. The crocodile meat by the fire began to sizzle and release oil, while beams of light returned to Lu Yu's summoning space. Some of these were the frozen remains of summoned creatures, while others were the slain indigenous beasts. Truly, the name Land of Eternal Frost was fitting. The environment here vividly embodied the first two characters of the map's name. Lu Yu distributed the roasted meat among the group, taking a piece for himself. Yet, before he could take his first bite, a sensation surged within him. A spectral warrior had discovered what appeared to be the entrance to the Ice Cave of Death. Lu Yu activated his mind's eye. Before him lay a vast opening in the ground, from which chilling winds continually surged. This was indeed the entrance to the Ice Cave of Death. Yet, there was an inexplicable familiarity about this entrance to such a malevolent map. Initially, the map of the Skeleton General featured a similar entrance. Yet its grandeur pales in comparison to this one. Lu Yu finished the skewers in his hand, and then rose to his feet. We've located the dead cold ice cavern. It's time to set forth. It is indeed better to have a larger group, as tasks are accomplished with greater efficiency. Chun Zhu rose in tandem, followed by the others, who swiftly concluded their meals and trailed behind Lu Yu. Navigating through relentless snow and fog, the group arrived at the entrance of the cave. Chun Zhu gazed at the cavernous opening and remarked, "Brother Yu, this resembles the general's tomb." Lu Yu nodded. "It is highly probable that this is the malevolent map of the undead clan. Everyone, exercise caution." With that, Lu Yu leaped into the abyss, and the others followed suit. As a sensation of weightlessness enveloped him, Lu Yu plummeted to the cave floor. 1,000? Is there falling damage? The number 1,000 appeared above Lu Yu's head, and he soon realized it was not falling damage, but rather the ongoing loss of health due to freezing. Chapter 339. The Dead Cold Ice Cavern. The temperature within the Dead Cold Ice Cavern was even lower than that outside. Even with the protection of his cold-resistant attire and medicinal potions, Lu Yu could still feel the bone-chilling cold. A system notification chimed. You have entered the malevolent map, Dead Cold Ice Cavern. Experience from monster kills, 100. Monster drop rate, 100. The drop rate upon death in this map, 100. Level 5. And prior to clearing the dungeon, you cannot exit voluntarily. Indeed, this was a wicked map, and a highly leveled one at that. However, Lu Yu had never encountered a map of such malevolence before, causing him to frown slightly in puzzlement. The innocent youth and others also descended, similarly afflicted by the ongoing freezing damage. Ru Ming Jiangnan waved his staff, casting a protective layer over everyone. Lu Yu turned back and asked, "Jiangnan, do you have enough blue potions?" "Rest assured, leader, I have ample herbs in my pack. I prepared them in advance. For this map, seems far from simple. Very well, Lu Yu replied. As Ru Meng Jiangnan followed closely behind Lu Yu, he retrieved herbs from his backpack to concoct blue potions. Observing Lu Yu's serious demeanor, the others heightened their vigilance. If even Lu Yu deemed this map to be formidable, it was evident that it was far more terrifying than they had anticipated. Lu Yu summoned several goblins to forge a path ahead, while instructing some goblin assassins to enter stealth mode, poised for an ambush. The terrain of the dead cold ice cavern was expansive. If not for the pervasive ice, it would closely resemble the general's tomb. This further solidified Lu Yu's conviction that this was indeed the malevolent map of the undead clan. Only a horde of skeletons could muster the manpower to excavate such a vast subterranean expanse. However, this time, Lu Yu refrained from summoning an excessive number of creatures, as was his usual practice. The freezing characteristics of this map significantly diminish Lu Yu's numerical advantage. Summoning more creatures now serves no purpose beyond further depleting Ru Meng Jiangnan's mana. Perhaps, in the presence of the necromancer race, Lu Yu may not possess much of an advantage in numbers after all. The group advanced cautiously, although the walls of the ice cavern were adorned with crystals for illumination. The brightness was, after all, limited. Lu Yu led the way, with Chun Zhu bringing up the rear, while Yushir Wu Zheng and Sun Rue Kong flanked Ru Meng Jiangnan protectively. The innocent youth entered a stealth mode, trailing behind the foremost summoned beasts to scout the surroundings. However, she dared not venture too far, as straying beyond Ru Meng Jiangnan's skill range would render her reliant solely on health potions to restore her vitality. Brother Yu, this map can't truly belong to the necromancer race, can it? Chun Zhu whispered, sensing a familiarity as they proceeded. Previously, he had been oblivious to the truths of the abyss and thus had not paid much attention to various maps. Yet, since uncovering the reality, he had conducted extensive research, including on the general's tomb that Lu Yu had visited previously. Therefore, upon encountering such a familiar environment once more, he could discern certain details. Be prepared for battle at all times, Lu Yu advised, refraining from elaborating further. Having traversed a considerable distance without encountering a single skeleton soldier only heightened his unease. If it were the usual quantity of the necromancer race, the entire map would likely be teeming with them. Reflecting on the first level of the general's tomb, where white bones were densely packed, it seemed implausible that they had traveled so far without encountering even a minor creature. Something is amiss, Lu Yu thought. Just then, he suddenly received a warning. The goblins scouting ahead had been ambushed and were now dead. The team chat channel erupted with a message from the innocent youth. Everyone be cautious, the wild creatures are embedded in the surrounding ice, ready to break through and launch surprise attacks at any moment. Before Lu Yu could finish reading the message, a scream erupted from behind him. He turned to see a spear suddenly thrusting up from beneath the ice, targeting the space between Yushir Wu Zheng's legs. Reacting swiftly, Yushir Wu Zheng leaped aside, preserving his dignity, yet the spear still grazed his calf, leaving a gaping wound that exposed bone, draining his health to the brink. Ru Meng Jiangnan promptly cast a healing spell, successfully saving him just in time. Sun Rue Kang's battle axe struck the ice where the spear had emerged, inflicting a meager amount of damage that barely grazed the defenses. Chun Zhu's immediate instinct was to shield Ru Meng Jiangnan. The team's healer could not afford to be harmed, or their endeavor would be in vain. Lu Yu glanced down at the ice layer, only then noticing the peculiar markings etched upon its surface. The intricate patterns before me resemble the bones of numerous skulls. However, these skulls are not composed of mere white, copper, or iron bones, but rather appear to be crafted from a translucent crystal. They are embedded within the icy layers, seamlessly merging with the entire ice cavern. If one does not scrutinize closely, it would seem as though the ground beneath is perpetually encased in ice, devoid of any anomalies. This is true not only for the ground, but also for the icy layers adorning the surrounding rock walls. Beware of the ice. The voice of Wushir Wu Cheng resounds loudly in warning. Yet, this caution is rendered utterly futile, for the entire ice cavern is shrouded in a thick blanket of ice. Within these layers lie countless crystal skeletons, all concealed. As the spear thrusts forth, the surrounding ice layers swiftly begin to crack, with spears erupting from the ice, aimed directly at Lu Yu and his companions. Such a concentrated barrage leaves no room for evasion. With his staff in hand, Ru Meng Jiangnan vigorously casts various restorative spells upon everyone. Renowned as the foremost healer of the abyss, he manages to pull everyone back from the brink of death amidst this onslaught. However, the group finds themselves in dire straits, as these crystal skeletons are elite monsters at level 65, presenting a daunting challenge with a staggering level difference of over 20. Furthermore, they possess high attack and low defense attributes, capable of inflicting severe damage with a single basic attack, draining half of one's health. Although they manage to survive the spear assaults, the crystal skeletons within the ice layers emerge in unison. Particularly alarming is how the skeletons beneath their feet rise in an eerie manner, confronting them face to face, leaving Lu Yu no opportunity to summon aid before they are upon him. Gritting his teeth, Lu Yu unleashes his divine fire skill, enveloping everyone within its reach. Chapter 340, Sea of Flames. Everyone, drink your blood potions. Jiangnan, Do your utmost to maintain our health. Lu Yu does not hesitate to employ the divine fire skill on his comrades, fully aware of Ru Mingjiang Nan's remarkable healing capacity. Additionally, the substantial healing boost from the heavenly artifact, the Savior Ring, ensures that the damage from the divine fire can be sustained for a while. Though the damage from the divine fire is significant, its true strength lies in its persistence. The harm it inflicts upon Wushi Wu Cheng and his companions is comparable to the earlier spear barrage, albeit the spear strikes last only a few seconds, while the divine fire continues to burn as long as Lu Yu does not retract it. As the divine fire blazes, the recently risen crystal skeletons writhe in agony, with a cascade of damage indicators appearing above them, each registering 5-digit numbers. In mere moments, all the skeletons are incinerated, drawn into Lu Yu's summoning space. It is evident that fire-based skills possess a considerable advantage against these crystal skeletons. Leader, quickly retract your skills. My cooldowns are running out. As Ru Mingjiang Nan observed the surrounding wild creatures reduced to ashes, he hurriedly urged Lu Yu to retract his skills. Lu Yu waved his staff, withdrawing the divine flames, while contemplating the necessity of providing Ru Mingjiang Nan with an equipment to reduce skill cooldowns. The healer possessed ample healing power. Yet without timely skills, it would be futile. With the divine fire extinguished, the ground and walls were marred by the pockmarks left by the crystal skeletons. The pure-hearted youth appeared before the group, in pristine condition, having utilized her stealth to evade detection, remaining unscathed in the corner while the skeletons posed no threat to her. Brother, I just observed that the area we traversed earlier, extending quite a distance ahead, is filled with these crystal skeletons hidden within the ice. They have merged with the ice layer, and unless they choose to emerge, we cannot harm them without breaking the ice, she reported. Lu Yu nodded, finally grasping the locations of these skeletons. Although the situation was somewhat tricky, it was far better than being completely in the dark. He glanced at the hundreds of crystal skeletons in his summoning space. They were concealed within the ice, seemingly immune to the continuous damage of freezing. Could it be that their innate characteristics granted them immunity to ice damage? If so, capturing a multitude of crystal skeletons would offset their numerical disadvantage. With this thought, Lu Yu summoned several crystal skeletons. However, upon their appearance, they were immediately afflicted by freezing damage, their health steadily declining. Aren't they supposed to merge with the ice? Why are they still susceptible to freezing damage? The pure-hearted youth questioned, perplexed. Lu Yu's expression darkened. The final boss of this map is likely a frostbone dragon. Levels 100 to 120. The immunity to freezing that these skeletons exhibit is granted by that ancient dragon. Once they are defeated, the immunity vanishes. Shaking his head, Lu Yu found it difficult to fathom that within the second-tier main city, there existed such a nefarious map. Strangely, one would expect him to be aware of a high-level evil map, yet he found himself oblivious. As if this malevolent burial ground of the necromancer race had materialized suddenly in this era. Levels 100 to 120? Upon hearing Lu Yu's words, everyone's eyes widened in astonishment. So, the ultimate boss here might actually be a third transformation giant boss? Lu Yu nodded, acknowledging the surprising reality that a third transformation boss could exist within the confines of the second-tier main city. They could only hope that the Frostbone Dragon was not fully matured. As long as it was not at the third transformation, there still remained a fighting chance. Unperturbed, he nudged Chinju. I say, Pig Brother, what is your prospective Mentor's background? Is he truly prepared to confront a third transformation dragon here? Surely, he won't lead us into a trap. How would I know? Chinju was quite helpless. Moreover, you need to straighten your tongue. It's Zhu, not Zhu, Pig. They are nearly the same. Not at all. Goodness, by changing the second tone to the first, you have transformed it into an entirely different species. Lu Yu couldn't help but smile slightly, amused that the two were still bickering amidst the situation. Brother, we are truly relying on you this time. The pure-hearted youth grasped Lu Yu's sleeve. The 3-turn Frostbone Dragon. Just thinking about it is daunting. Since this is an evil map, if we can't defeat it, we will surely perish here. Lu Yu pursed his lips. Not necessarily. At least the two of us might have a chance. If we truly cannot win, we can find a spatial rift, traverse the abyss into the undead realm, and then return using a return scroll. After that, we can level up and come back for them. That actually makes sense, brother. You're impressive. Chinju interjected. So you're just going to abandon us? Lu Yu replied. That's the worst-case scenario. This Frostbone Dragon may not even be a 3-turn, as long as it ISNT. Our chances of winning are still considerable. He glanced at the summoning space where the little golden crow was still slumbering. As long as the Frostbone Dragon wasn't a 3-turn, there remained hope to defeat it while the little golden crow was alive. For now, let us deal with these crystal skeletons before us. But, brother you, how do we do that? If they 1T emerge from the ice, we can't just chip away at it bit by bit, can we? The crystal skeletons seemed to fear fire. But the Guildmaster's divine fire skill had a limited range. None of the rest of us possess fire skills, right? Lu Yu shook his head. Fire skills? Any mage would have some basic knowledge. But then he remembered. Oh, I almost forgot. Brother, you have a summoned beast. With a single gesture, hundreds of goblin fire mages appeared out of thin air. One by one, fireball spells, and blazing fire seas rained down upon the distant ice cave. In an instant, the entire ice cave was engulfed in flames, and the pure-hearted youth and his companions felt the temperature around them rise several degrees. The crystal skeletons hidden within the ice were caught in a catastrophic disaster. Some attempted to struggle and rise, charging toward Lu Yu. But before they could take a few steps, they collapsed into the sea of fire. After receiving the blessing of immunity to freezing damage, they would naturally pay an equivalent price in another aspect, such as suffering multiplied fire damage. The fire mages began to advance, continuously unleashing their spells. Lu Yu and his companions followed closely behind, and once the mana of these fire mages was depleted, Lu Yu recalled them and summoned a fresh batch of mages. He hadn't anticipated that the ice cave, which he had initially thought would be arduous and treacherous, would be so easy to navigate. Chapter 341. The first on the heavenly rankings in the summoning space. The number of crystal skeletons was increasing, with rough estimates already reaching 30 to 40,000. As Lu Yu and his companions ventured deeper, the icy cavern appeared interminable. Hours slipped away without a hint of an end. After vanquishing another wave of skeletal foes, a golden light enveloped Lu Yu. He glanced at his level, which had risen to 66, one level higher than before his last demise. The crystal skeletons ranged between levels 65 and 70, and even with experience distributed evenly among the team, it amounted to a significant bounty. The members of the team, particularly the likes of Wu Shi Wu Zheng, were elated. Previously, only Lu Yu, the pure-hearted youth, and Ru Meng Jiang Nan had reached level 40. Now, the others had surpassed that milestone, some even exceeding it by several levels. Once they exited this place, they could seek their respective mentors for their first-class advancement, provided they made it out safely. At that moment, the pure-hearted youth suddenly exclaimed, "WC." The others quickly readied themselves for battle, but upon turning to her, they discovered that the little girl was not under attack. Rather, she was staring wide-eyed at a data panel. Everyone hurried to peer over her shoulder, and soon the air was filled with exclamations of WOC. Lu Yu, puzzled, transferred command of the goblin mage to Mao and joined them to investigate. The data panel the pure-hearted youth was observing was none other than the leaderboard for the human race. Lu Yu had not checked this list in quite some time. Given his rapid leveling, he had comfortably held the top spot and felt little need to monitor it. This seemed to be a shared understanding among all, especially since Lu Yu had surpassed level 60 before anyone else had even advanced to their first class. However, to his astonishment, the leaderboard had shifted. The name Qing Jiu had been relegated to second place, while a player named Ming Shan now claimed the top position. Lu Yu exchanged glances with Wu Shi Wu Zheng, who returned his gaze with equal curiosity. Previously, upon returning from the realm of the Nether, Lu Yu had urgently sought a human token, and Wu Shi Wu Zheng had procured one from this very Ming Shan. Lu Yu recalled that this individual hailed from Sunset City and practiced a hidden class known as the Soul Mage. The two alchemical beasts that accompanied him had left a lasting impression on Lu Yu. At that time, Ming Shan had expressed a desire to restore the souls of those creatures, and Lu Yu had informed him of the events surrounding the graveyard in Baiyan City, prompting Ming Shan to kneel before him in gratitude. Now, this Soul Mage had surpassed Lu Yu in level. Lu Yu had just achieved level 66 with 0 experience points, while Ming Shan stood at level 66 with 49 experience points. Although Lu Yu's previous death accounted for some of this discrepancy, ascending more than 20 levels in such a brief span was undeniably astonishing. It was noteworthy that Ming Shan had not benefited from the summoning beasts that Lu Yu had employed for leveling, nor did he have access to the same goblin army to grind experience. Brother Yu, since Ming Shan returned to Sunset City after his last visit, should we reach out to him? Lu Yu shook his head, suggesting that they might inquire if he would be willing to join the Lord of the Abyss. Without any pressure, for everyone has their own destiny. All right, Brother Yu, I understand. Lu Yu couldn't help but recall the last time he informed Ming Shan that one needed to reach level 80 to enter the primary city. He immediately set off to level up. It seemed he had an urgent need to restore the souls of those two pets. Perhaps Lu Yu could attempt to assist him, as delving into the study of souls would greatly benefit their struggle against the undead. However, Lu Yu decided against it, shaking his head. He still had his own matters to attend to, and others could wait. On the forum, discussions regarding the ranking leaderboard intensified. Some proclaimed Ming Shan as a rising star with limitless potential, while others suggested that finally, someone could challenge Qing Jiu, preventing him from monopolizing the spotlight. Yet, there were dissenting voices claiming that Ming Shan was merely high in level and would prove inconsequential against Qing Jiu. Regardless, the topic of Ming Shan remained ever present. Lu Yu did not peruse the forum, but the others in his party were idly browsing it. Hey, that's odd. What's up, Brother Pig? Have you all noticed that pure-hearted little girl has not reported anything about Ming Shan? In the past, she would have surely released a dedicated video, or even a series of reports by now. It's not that pure-hearted little girl hasn't reported. It appears she hasn't updated in several days. Indeed, I just checked her homepage, and her last update was about the Goblin Legion's siege on the 3 major secondary cities. This is unusual. Isn't her intelligence usually timely? Wherever there is news, she is there. Why has she gone silent recently? Has she quit the game? Impossible. With her current influence, earning $1 million a month would be effortless. Shi Wunti quit the game. By the way, do you know her in-game name? A silence enveloped the group. No one was aware of Pure-Hearted Little Girl's identity in the game. There was indeed a player with the ID Pure-Hearted Little Girl. But examining their various statistics and performances, it was clear they were not the same person as the one on the forum. Given her swift intelligence, could she be affiliated with the Huan Bureau? No, I asked directly long ago, and Pure-Hearted Little Girl has little to no connection with the Huan Bureau. Little to no connection? So there is some? That's obvious. We have connections with the Huan Bureau too. All the game pods are sold through them. Once you enter the abyss, how could there be no ties at all? Do you know about this Pure-Hearted Little Girl? Lu Yu shook his head. He too was unclear about this blogger. In his previous life, Pure-Hearted Little Girl did not exist, and in this life, Lu Yu had little interaction with her. The only connection between the two individuals lies in the multitude of significant events that transpired around Lu Yu. Consequently, the frequency of Lu Yu's appearances in the videos of the innocent young lady is relatively higher. Beyond this, there exists no further association. However, I harbor suspicions that she might be involved in an abyssal profession or possesses an abyssal artifact. Lu Yu articulated his conjecture. Otherwise, it would be improbable for her to maintain such a formidable intelligence network. The others nodded in agreement, wholeheartedly endorsing Lu Yu's hypothesis. Frequently, the intelligence from the innocent young lady is remarkably ahead of the curve, leaving even the Huan Bureau astounded at how this blogger acquires such extensive information. Chapter 342. The Ice Rock Giant. Lu Yu had not paid much attention to the innocent young lady. Nevertheless, if the opportunity arises, he would be inclined to learn more about someone similarly under the scrutiny of the abyss, especially given her recent unusual absence. His initial reaction was to wonder if she had been secretly eliminated by an alien faction. However, this conclusion was quickly dismissed. If such an event had indeed occurred, the Huan Bureau would have informed him long ago. Despite the current dominance of the Abyssal Lord over humanity, Lu Yu would never underestimate the power of the Huan Bureau, which is supported by the machinery of the state. It is unlikely that matters are as straightforward as they appear. Since assassination was ruled out, another possibility emerged. Perhaps the innocent young lady was unable to update the forum due to circumstances beyond her control. She might be preoccupied with offline matters or unable to access the forum, much like Lu Yu had experienced when he was in alien territory, where the abyss had severed his signals. If the opportunity presents itself, Lu Yu would consider reaching out to this innocent young lady, as her abilities could prove invaluable on future battlefields. I have been keeping an eye on her, brother Yu, said Wu Zheng, who conducted his affairs with a sense of detachment. Lu Yu felt reassured by his approach. Observing the passage of time, it was evident that they had been traversing this area for a considerable duration. Although the crystal skeleton possessed vast experience, the continuous encounters with skeletons without sighting any other wild beasts began to fray the nerves of Wu Zheng and the others. Chen Zhu, in particular, was anxious, as he had yet to encounter a single target for his mission. Brother Yu, are we trapped in some sort of illusion? It has been such a long time. Chen Zhu queried. Lu Yu shook his head, asserting, the changes in levels are authentic. It is unlikely to be an illusion. In fact, Lu Yu had harbored such concerns for some time, prompting him to enter his summoning space for verification. Ultimately, he discovered that the experience reservoir was steadily increasing, and the number of crystal skeletons within the summoning space was also on the rise. There are few wild beasts possessing illusionary skills, and it is even more improbable for one to manipulate illusions with such meticulousness. Therefore, it appears that the size and expanse of this icy cavern are truly beyond imagination. As the crowd remained perplexed, the endless expanse of ice before them finally gave way to a towering wall of ice at the horizon. They had arrived at the end, much to Lu Yu's relief, for he had feared that their journey would be interminable, and before encountering the skeletal dragon, their supplies might dwindle to nothing. Soon, they found themselves beneath the icy barrier, which they presumed marked the terminus. Yet, a sense of unease lingered. Why was there nothing here? No boss, nor any pathway downward. Lu Yu gazed at the massive ice wall, its sheer size and solidity rendering the interior invisible. Brother Yu, could the path to the next level lie behind this ice wall? One of them pondered. There was a possibility. To advance, they would first need to melt the wall. Step back, I shall attempt to burn it with divine fire. The divine fire, a skill bestowed by the Golden Crow, possessed a potency far superior to ordinary fire-based abilities, ensuring a swifter melting process. The group began to retreat in unison, but as they did, the ice wall inexplicably began to shift alongside them. What on earth? Everyone was taken aback, astounded that the wall could move. They hastened their retreat, only to find the wall advancing at an equal pace. Furrowing his brow, Lu Yu tried to halt his steps, but the relentless wall continued its advance, bearing down upon him with an ominous intent to crush him into pulp. Brother, you, leader. The others gasped in horror, desperate to pull him back, but the distance was insurmountable. Yet, in that moment, Lu Yu was devoid of panic. Clarity dawned upon him. With a swift gesture, he summoned countless beasts before him, all clad in heavy armor as shield warriors. As they united their strength, they managed to halt the wall's momentum, bringing it to a surprising standstill. Lu Yu then brandished his staff, unleashing the divine fire skill, igniting a fierce blaze beneath the ice wall. As the flames roared, damage numbers began to leap from the icy barrier. This was no mere wall, but a colossal ice golem, composed entirely of frost-laden boulders, remaining motionless, thus creating the illusion of a solid barrier. Upon witnessing the numbers erupting from the wall, the rest quickly grasped the reality of their situation. Instantly, they transitioned into battle mode. The pure-hearted youth executed a backstab with a flash, leaving shallow marks upon the ice golem's rear. In this instance, physical attacks proved to be rather feeble. Even with the pure-hearted youth's substantial critical hit and defense-ignoring bonuses, the cumulative damage from 2 backstabs barely exceeded 10,000. Viewed from this perspective, the Abyssal Shadow Assassin's class traits felt somewhat lacking. Curiously, the pure-hearted youth's greatest asset at present was her ability to remain undetected while in stealth. Based on this alone, it is entirely insufficient to qualify for the Abyss profession. Lu Yu found himself deeply puzzled. Was there something this young girl was concealing from him? It seemed unlikely. Although the pure-hearted youth had joined Lu Yu's team later on, the girl's character was beyond reproach, and Lu Yu had long considered her one of his own. Since there was no concealment, the issue must lie within the profession itself. Perhaps he should inquire with the Little Abyss. It would be prudent to consult the Abyss itself, as the last time Little Abyss mentioned it could facilitate passage through the Abyss. Therefore, it should also be possible to establish contact with the Abyss, right? Surely, the Abyss would be inclined to respond to him, especially since its offspring was still in his possession. Oh, Little Abyss must be male, wouldn't it? As Lu Yu pondered this, his hands continued their relentless motion. The warriors in front, bearing shields, were repeatedly sent flying by the ice rock giant, while Lu Yu persistently summoned new meat shields to take their place. After all, he had an endless supply of summoned beasts at his disposal, and there was no psychological burden whatsoever. The previously battle-ready members of the unworldly group could only wait on the sidelines. In such a battle, they were utterly incapable of contributing. Their involvement would only serve to complicate matters. Pig brother, we're not even as useful as those 2 girls right now, Chen Zhu remarked with a pout. It's as if you're implying we were more effective during our usual gang activities than those 2, retorted the unworldly. Momentarily speechless, he eventually rubbed his bald head and begrudgingly uttered a few words. You are right. Chapter 343. Subtle hints in just a few minutes. The ice rock giant's form shattered into countless fragments, clattering to the ground before transforming into a beam of light that soared into Lu Yu's summoning space. A brief glance revealed it to be a level 70 diamond-grade boss. Its attributes were commendable for a boss of this tier, boasting high attack, high defense, and substantial health, yet low speed and magical resistance. Most notably, its considerable size meant that on the battlefield, it would undoubtedly charge through like a tank. However, it would certainly be a target for additional care. Despite its name bearing the word giant, the ice rock giant had no relation to the giant race. In truth, it resembled the rock-based wild monsters found within the secret realm of gold and stone. Yet, Lu Yu had always been uncertain about which race to classify this non-carbon-based life form. The group continued onward, soon encountering yet another identical ice wall. Drawing from their previous experience, no one expressed confusion or surprise this time. They instinctively sprang into action. The pure-hearted youth executed a backstab, while Ru Ming Jiangnan cast a curse spell and then began healing the summoned beasts in front. Lu Yu unleashed his divine fire skill. As for Unworldly, Qinzhu, and Sun Ruekong, they remained behind, observing the frontline skirmish and occasionally sharing their thoughts. Once is a lesson, twice is familiarity. Everyone has gained experience in dealing with the ice rock giants, leading to a swifter pace in this battle. The naive youth's dagger lodged itself into the joint of the ice rock giant, causing it to topple over onto the ground. Brother, we have traversed such a long distance filled with crystal skeletons. It cannot be that the next stretch is dominated by these ice rock giants, can it? The likelihood seems quite high. Lu Yu shared the same sentiment. He had initially presumed that a level 70 diamond boss would resemble a final boss of a particular layer. However, encountering 2 in succession has raised suspicions of a possible third, or even more. It is indeed an unusual occurrence. As the map of the second-tier main city possesses more than 1 diamond-level boss in its first layer, the situation with subsequent bosses is unfathomable. Yet, Lu Yu pondered that the ultimate boss here might be a 3rd transformation Frostbone Dragon, which renders the presence of these diamond bosses somewhat more comprehensible. Nevertheless, the task of eliminating these bosses still left Lu Yu somewhat discontented. The time spent on such bosses vastly exceeded that required to vanquish crystal skeletons, while the experience gained was comparatively meager. If given a choice, Lu Yu would prefer to farm crystal skeletons. The ice rock giant struggled to rise, but the naive youth swiftly lodged his dagger into another joint. With the ice rock giant sprawled on the ground, the warriors in the front line, who had been holding shields, immediately transitioned from defense to offense. The fallen ice rock giant became a living target, easily dispatched, and soon transformed into a beam of light that flew into Lu Yu's summoning space. This was becoming a waste of time. Naive one, scout ahead. If there are more ice rock giants, lure them together. Understood, brother. The naive youth vanished, leading the way forward. These ice rock giants may obstruct Lu Yu and his comrades, but they could not hinder the naive youth. Her backstab skill enabled her to appear directly behind the ice rock giants, and the celestial artifact, Doom's Cold Light, granted her a teleportation effect. Lu Yu and the others consciously slowed their pace, waiting for the naive youth to draw the monsters. Soon, messages flooded the group chat from the naive youth. Brother, aside from the 2 ice rock giants we just encountered, there are 8 more ahead, and beyond them lies the entrance to the next layer. I'm currently luring these 8 over. Prepare yourselves. With a total of 10 ice rock giants, Lu Yu inexplicably sighed in relief. He had genuinely feared that the path ahead would be filled entirely with these ice rock giants, extending infinitely as before. 8 remaining is quite manageable. As he spoke, a thunderous commotion erupted from the ice cavern ahead. The 8 ice rock giants charged together, creating a cacophony within the small ice cavern that could only be described as earth-shattering. Lu Yu even worried that the cavern might collapse under the tumultuous upheaval. Fortunately, such a situation did not transpire. Ahead, a pure-hearted youth was sprinting, trailed by a solitary ice giant. The reason it was a single giant was that Lu Yu could only perceive one. The remaining 7 were obscured by the foremost giant. This was also why Lu Yu believed he could effortlessly vanquish all 8 ice giants. Although it appeared that 8 had arrived, in reality, they only needed to confront one at a time. The pure-hearted youth ran ahead with great ease and comfort, greeting Lu Yu and his companions with a wave. The ice giants were utterly unable to match her speed. Dreamlike Jiangnan and the others reciprocated the gesture, and healing spells were cast upon the pure-hearted youth. The damage she sustained was solely from the frostbite inflicted by the icy cavern. The ice giants had not even grazed her skin. Lu Yu raised his hand, summoning his familiar to take the front line, and the familiar battle commenced once more. Indifferent to the unfolding events, Lu Yu summoned Mao, assigning him full responsibility. The second-tier Goblin Knight joined the fray, making the already lopsided battle even more one-sided. Wu Shiji approached. Brother Yu, I just contacted Mingshan. He is somewhat reluctant to join a guild due to the constraints, but he expressed that if we require assistance, he will rush over from Sunset City. Lu Yu nodded, as he had anticipated this. When he first encountered Mingshan, he sensed that the individual was a lone wolf. It was indeed a pity that such a person could not be utilized for his own purposes. Moreover, Mingshan subtly indicated that he hoped Brother Yu would accompany him to the graveyard once the primary city opened. For this, he was willing to pay any price. Brother Yu, what do you think? Should we use this to invite him to join the Lord of the Abyss? Lu Yu shook his head. Forget it. Everyone has their own aspirations. Just tell him I can accompany him to the graveyard, and we can discuss the price later. All right. Wu Shiji continued. Brother Yu, take a look at this. Shenju also approached, displaying a panel featuring a pinned forum post titled, On the Similarities and Differences Among Various Races in the Abyss, the Dwarven Race, as an example. The post was evidently issued by the authorities, and the title seemed to lay the groundwork for amicable relations between the human and Dwarven races. This was not surprising. The collaboration with the Dwarven race marked the first instance of friendly interaction between humans and another race, making such groundwork reasonable. However, upon Lu Yu's glance over the entirety of the text, his brow furrowed in concern. Oddly, the post subtly conveyed the notion that other races genuinely existed. For those unaware of the truth of the Abyss, such veiled expressions might be easily overlooked. Yet, for Lu Yu and his companions, the underlying meaning was immediately apparent. This was the authorities laying the groundwork for the advent of the Abyss. However, did it not contradict the notion that the more people who knew the truth of the Abyss, the sooner its arrival would be? Why do the authorities now dare to issue such veiled hints? Chapter 344, Entering the Second Layer. Lu Yu promptly opened the dialogue box with Li Wei, Director Li. Regarding that post on the forum, this time, Li Wei did not respond to Lu Yu's message with his usual promptness. After a few minutes, he sent a brief message. There have been some changes. I am quite busy at the moment. I will discuss it with you in detail later. Upon seeing Li Wei's reply, a sense of foreboding suddenly arose in Lu Yu's heart. However, his sources of information were exceedingly limited. Unless he directly inquired about the Abyss, contingent upon its willingness to engage with him, he had no other avenues for more information regarding the impending arrival of the Abyss. Chen Zhu, standing nearby, could not help but ask, Brother Yu, is something wrong? Lu Yu nodded slightly. It is highly probable that an issue has arisen, though it should not be severe, otherwise. The Huan Bureau would not have made such subtle hints on the forum. He added, I will talk to Li Wei again shortly. For now, let us focus on securing your position as a weapons master. All right. Although Lu Yu spoke reassuringly, he felt far from at ease. Despite the hints being obscure, they were already pointing towards the essence of the Abyss. Even if only a fraction of the multitude paid attention to such hints, it would still constitute a considerable number. This undoubtedly accelerated the process of the Abyss's arrival. An expedited arrival of the Abyss would hasten the opening of the racial barriers, which was far from a favorable prospect. Currently, none of the 9,999 individuals had undergone their first transition, not to mention the formidable umbral race. Even the dwarves, a medium-sized race, had the vast majority reaching level 50. The disparity in levels was stark. Nonetheless, Lu Yu was aware that his concerns bore no fruit. He had already done all he could. For now, he needed to secure Chen Zhu's position as a weapons master. Even if other unforeseen circumstances arose, the human race would possess its own weapons masters, allowing for greater composure whether in offense or defense. Ahead, 8 ice rock giants lay slain, with the last one now in a critical state. The pure-hearted youth swiftly appeared, delivering a backstab that reduced the ice rock giant to mere threads of health. Ma-Ao stepped in to deliver the finishing blow, and the ice rock giant finally succumbed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, although they knew they could undoubtedly defeat these ice rock giants. The visual impact of such colossal figures before them still elicited an involuntary tension. The task of overcoming these 10 ice rock giants did not fall to the pure-hearted youth, nor to Lu Yu, but rather to Ru Meng Jiangnan. She had to manage the life force of Lu Yu's summoned beast, while simultaneously ensuring that no one else was frozen to death. The little girl's staff hardly paused for a moment. Now that they had finally overcome the challenge, Ru Meng Jiangnan continuously rubbed her wrists, as if they were near to breaking. Wu Shi Wu Zhuang wanted to offer a helping hand for a massage, but was pushed aside. Casting a pitiful glance at Lu Yu pursed his lips, pondering that the little girl might not be entirely innocent in her actions. All right, let us proceed to the next level, he stated, leading the way. It was not that he lacked compassion for delicate souls, but rather that he understood the exertion of such magical influence might leave her somewhat fatigued, though certainly not to the extent that Ru Meng Jiangnan had portrayed. This young lady had begun to indulge in a feigned fragility, and he resolved not to coddle her. If she dared to solicit his assistance for a massage today, who knew what she might attempt tomorrow? As Ru Meng Jiangnan observed Lu Yu's indifference, she couldn't help but sniffle, darting to the side of the innocent youth. Pure-hearted sister, the technique you taught me earlier is ineffective, she exclaimed. My brother is not so easily conquered. We must brace ourselves for a protracted battle. Indeed. I shall heed your counsel, came the reply. After traversing a short distance, they finally beheld the terminus of the ice cavern, where a staircase descended. Compared to the steps leading to the general's tomb, the only distinction was that these were adorned with a layer of ice. Lu Yu took the lead, treading cautiously downwards. The icy surface was perilously slick, and one misstep could lead to quite an embarrassing predicament. He descended step by step, ultimately entering the second level. However, before he could catch his breath, a startled cry from the two girls behind him was followed by the startled exclamations of Wu Jing and Zhu. Lu Yu swiftly turned to see the innocent youth losing her footing, her posterior meeting the steps with a resounding thud. In her fluster, she grabbed Ru Meng Jiangnan, who was already unsteady, and together they tumbled down, colliding with Wu Jing and Zhu in a chaotic heap. The four of them slid down the staircase in unison. As they passed Lu Yu, the innocent girl, whether in panic or seeking stability, reached out towards him. Quick as a flash, Lu Yu stepped back, narrowly avoiding her grasp, only to catch the glimmer of resentment in her eyes. The quartet slid a considerable distance before they could finally halt their descent. Sun Ruekong, trailing behind, descended leisurely, a smile upon his face, completely unfazed by the precariousness exhibited by those ahead. The essence of a practiced individual lies in their steadiness, Lu Yu mused, silently admiring him. As for the innocent youth and her companions, Lu Yu had little desire to intervene. Had he not caught that wistful gaze from the young girl, he would have rushed to assist. Yet, with that look of reproach lingering in his mind, he now harbored doubts regarding the authenticity of her tumble. Surveying his surroundings, Lu Yu noted a distinct shift in the environment compared to the first level, primarily reflected in the expanse of the ice cavern. The previous chamber could be obstructed by a single giant ice rock, yet this level required at least two, and even then, they could not entirely impede passage. As for the wild creatures that dwelled here, Lu Yu casually conjured 2 orbs of divine fire. The flames ignited, yet failed to inflict any harm. Within the ice layer, there were no crystal skulls. If this layer does not contain crystal skulls, then what could it possibly be? As Lu Yu pondered this perplexity, a sudden rustling sound emanated from around the corner of the distant ice cave, reminiscent of something crawling towards them. It was akin to the sound of cockroaches scurrying away when one turns on the light in the dead of night. Judging by the noise, there must be a multitude of them. The others also heard the sound, and the pure-hearted youth and his companions hastily rose from the ground, their eyes fixated on the direction of the corner. However, after waiting for over a minute, nothing emerged from the corner. Instead, the rustling sound gradually faded into silence. Chapter 345. Bone Insect. Everyone's nerves were heightened. No one would let their guard down simply because the strange sound had dissipated. Rather, each individual became increasingly cautious, having learned from their previous encounters with the crystal skulls and ice rock giants. They recognized that the wild creatures here were not only formidable, but also exceptionally adept at concealment. While their strength was concerning, Lu Yu felt no overwhelming pressure from creatures of level 60 or 70 in his presence. However, their skill in hiding was something even Lu Yu admired. The undead beings were diverse and ever-evolving, with only a few top-tier varieties possessing strong recognition. Thus, while Lu Yu could speculate about the ultimate boss in this realm, he remained oblivious to which undead creature was responsible for the peculiar sounds. Despite having endured numerous battles, he would not claim to have encountered every type of undead. Nevertheless, this did not hinder him from taking precautionary measures. With a flourish of the radiant sun staff, Lu Yu unleashed 3 flames of divine fire, forming a triangular inferno around them for protection. As the inferno ignited, a crackling sound immediately followed. Within the flames, a flurry of damage numbers erupted, sending shivers down their spines. What entity had sustained damage? This enigma lingered in everyone's minds, but just as they pondered, they felt something crawling upon them. Starting from their feet, it surged upwards, as if countless cockroaches scuttled over their bodies. Ah! Ah! The two young girls shrieked in terror. Although they could not see what was crawling on them, the sensation of the legs skimming across their skin was unmistakably vivid. The nearby men were equally horrified. Facing such a multitude of insects bounding on their bodies, the fright they experienced was no less than that of the girls. However, out of concern for their masculine pride, they refrained from vocalizing their fear, instead hastily swatting at their clothing in an attempt to drive the creatures away. Yet, this endeavor proved futile. As soon as one arm was cleared of insects, another swarm would ascend. Lu Yu, too, found himself at a loss. While the divine fire could burn perpetually, there were still cooldowns between its activation and deactivation. Now, as the divine fire is retracted, not only can it not be unleashed again in the short term, but it also invites more of the insects. Fortunately, at present, these creatures merely evoke a sense of revulsion without inflicting any substantial harm. As Lu Yu contemplated this, an acute sensation akin to being pricked by needles surged through various parts of his body. A myriad of damage indicators appeared above everyone's heads. Although each damage point was merely one, it was evident that this was not the primary means of attack by the insects. Following that stinging sensation, each individual was marked with a sign of extreme toxicity, and with the influence of the poison, damage indicators continued to emerge, incessantly displaying 10, 10, 10. Each instance of damage was only 10, yet it could manifest hundreds of times within a second. The health points of Lu Yu and the others plummeted below half. Damn it. This was no longer merely a matter of disgust. Jiangnan, holy light. Lu Yu shouted fervently. Ru Ming Jiangnan instantly reacted, enduring both physical and psychological discomfort as she raised her staff. A brilliant beam of white light emanated from the tip of her staff, illuminating the entire cavern. As the radiance enveloped Lu Yu and the others, waves of black mist wafted from them, ultimately dissipating under the sanctity of the holy light. Their poison states vanished as well. However, the holy light skill could only dispel negative attributes. It was powerless against the insects clinging to their bodies. Since the divine fire could not be retracted, they would have to enter it. Lu Yu sprinted towards the nearest patch of divine fire, acutely aware that with each stride, more insects fell from his body. Yet, the remaining insects clung even tighter. The closer he drew to the divine fire, the more agitated the insects became, and the stinging pain coursed through Lu Yu incessantly. He vividly remembered the pain of being stung by a scorpion in his childhood. But the agony inflicted by these insects was far more excruciating, and it was a pervasive suffering. Fortunately, the holy light from Ru Ming Jiangnan continued to shine. And although Lu Yu felt pain, the actual damage was minimal. He struggled and dashed into the divine fire, and with a series of crackling sounds, he could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. His body remained numb, yet the sensation of being bitten had vanished, and no insects continued to crawl on his skin. Seeing this, the others promptly moved towards the divine fire. Soon, everyone stood within the range of the divine fire skill, and countless damage values emerged from each person. However, at that moment, they found these numbers surprisingly agreeable. Although the divine fire scorched their skin, inflicting immense suffering, they preferred this burning agony over the unsettling sensation of the swarm crawling over them. In the ethereal realm of Jiangnan, the divine light skill had long been retracted, replaced by the benevolent spells of healing and restoration. Lu Yu's magical prowess was exceptionally high, significantly surpassing others by 20 levels. Thus, relying solely on the healing spell proved insufficient to preserve his vitality. At the fringes of the divine flames, sporadic crackling sounds persisted, though they had diminished considerably since the onset. This was not indicative of the divine fire having incinerated all the insects, but rather that the creatures had been thwarted by the flames and ceased their advance. Lu Yu first summoned a cadre of mages, cleansing the area encircled by the divine flames with an inferno. Only after ensuring the absence of insects within did he emerge from the flames. The others promptly vacated the fiery perimeter. While Lu Yu remained immune to his own spells, the others suffered, emerging soot-stained and disheveled. Even the two young maidens appeared unkempt, rendering them unrecognizable to any onlooker, regardless of their intentions. Nonetheless, no one paid heed to such trivialities. They were still reeling from their narrow escape. The recent swarm had left an indelible impact on all present. Lu Yu, perhaps in the best condition among them, entered his summoning space, where a multitude of writhing insects awaited. Bone insect, elite level wild creature, level 1 health, 100 attack, 1 defense, 1 magic power, 1 speed, 800 attack speed, 800 skills, bite. Invisibility, bite. The target bitten will immediately suffer from corpse poison, inflicting 10 damage per second. Invisibility, can choose to conceal itself, rendering it imperceptible to visual detection. Description, exercise caution upon encountering a bone insect, for they are ubiquitous. Chapter 346, quantity. A single bone insect, no larger than a thumb, is composed of 4 or 5 segments of bone. In its visible state, It glistens with a translucent sheen, reminiscent of the earlier crystal skeletons. Lu Yu picked one up, observing that although they appeared to writhe, they were actually crawling with remarkable speed. Beneath their abdomens, if one could deem it an abdomen, were rows of small, pointed legs of varying lengths, creating the illusion of writhing. Lu Yu scrutinized the attributes of the bone insect repeatedly before concluding that, when stripped of their dual speed capabilities, their statistics paled in comparison to those of the novice village's large-eared rabbits. Even with the dual speed attributes included, they remained fragile creatures, easily dispatched with a mere touch. Yet, paradoxically, the sheer numbers of bone insects warranted their classification as elite-level wild creatures. Individually, or even in groups of 10 or 100, they posed little threat. However, within the brief span of mere minutes, Lu Yu's summoning space had burgeoned with thousands of bone insects. This was merely the aftermath of a recent slaughter. Outside the Inferno's reach, the number of unscathed bone insects could still be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. The mere thought of such a staggering figure sent a shiver down Lu Yu's spine. Moreover, these bone insects were all of the first tier, which implied that even if they managed to eradicate the entire swarm, the experience gained would be minimal. Lu Yu shared the information regarding the bone insects with the others. Chinju, slapping his thigh, exclaimed, "How can there be such repulsive monsters? It's one thing to lack gold and equipment, but to receive no experience at all is infuriating." Chinju's words made Lu Yu realize that among the tens of thousands of bone insects, not a single gold coin had been dropped. In the past, gold coins were instinctively collected by summoned beasts, which Lu Yu would later gather. This time, however, the absence of gold went unnoticed by him until now. Yet, it seemed that pondering over the lack of gold coins was not of immediate concern. Gold and experience were secondary. The pressing matter was how to navigate past the swarm of insects. Lu Yu's remark pulled everyone's scattered thoughts back to the present. Indeed, the priority should be on devising a strategy to eliminate these vile bone insects. The Sea of Flames was undoubtedly effective, yet its range was severely limited. The second level appeared to be entirely dominated by the bone insects. A gradual advance through the Sea of Flames would take an eternity. Most critically, during their advance, no one could stray beyond the confines of the Inferno. Here, the realm of fire did not merely signify a designated area encircled by divine flames, where everyone stood in safety. Rather, it entailed traversing through the flames themselves, enduring their searing heat. After all, neither Lu Yu nor the fire mage could conjure a fire circle that would move in tandem with their steps. The group exchanged glances, their thoughts evidently mirroring Lu Yu's own. While walking through the Sea of Flames for a short duration was feasible, who could ascertain the length of this icy abyss? If it were to extend for a considerable duration, like the previous level, they would all be reduced to charred remnants. What if we attempt to proceed as is? Let Jiangnan dispel the corpse poison with holy light while we endure the biting damage. After all, it's merely insects crawling over us, Chinju suggested, his voice dwindling as he noticed the furious glares directed at him by the others, especially from the innocent youth and Rumeng Jiangnan, who would rather have the elder brother consume them than endure hundreds of insects crawling upon their bodies. Lu Yu shook his head in response. Even without the corpse poison, the pain from the bone insect's bites is excruciating. We cannot walk as we normally would. Then I'm at a loss. Perhaps we should just wait here for our demise, Chinju said, throwing his hands up in resignation as he sat down. Typically a stern vice leader during guild activities, he felt free to let his guard down in the company of familiar faces, particularly with Lu Yu present. In his own words, feigning a semblance of seriousness is quite exhausting. If given the choice, he would prefer to relinquish his responsibilities and engage in more leisurely pursuits. However, the Lord of the Abyss belongs to Lu Yu, and Lu Yu lacks the time to manage it all. As Lu Yu's closest confidant, he willingly took on a portion of Lu Yu's burdens, including the task of monitoring the situation. Although Lu Yu never explicitly stated it, Chinju had initially set this requirement for himself. Yet, as time has elapsed, this demand has become obsolete. For the notion of being indifferent to the world has transformed into a genuine camaraderie. Not far off, Rumeng Jiangnan rummaged through his backpack for herbs. I recall my mentor mentioning a particular herb that holds a lethal allure for low-level undead creatures. Ah, yes, this is it. Rumeng Jiangnan produced a handful of small red flowers. Upon their emergence, the previously tranquil bone insects outside began to exhibit signs of agitation. Once again, the crackling sounds echoed through the divine flames. Boss, we can use these flowers to attract the bone insects. Once they are all eradicated, we can make our escape. What a splendid idea. Everyone's eyes lit up. This was undoubtedly the best plan they had thus far. Lu Yu nodded in agreement. Seemingly realizing that this was their sole option, Rumeng Jiangnan retrieved more red flowers from his backpack and scattered them around. Lu Yu summoned a black-headed eagle, instructing it to soar through the icy cavern in search of the exit. Then, everyone sat down on the ground, listening to the surrounding sounds resembling popcorn popping, while they awaited in silence. An hour passed, and the noises persisted. After 2 hours, the sounds remained unabated. 3 hours elapsed, and they were all bored to the brink of exasperation, while the bone insects outside seemed inexhaustible. Finally, as the 4th hour approached its conclusion, the black-headed eagle relayed a message. It had spotted the entrance to the next level. Lu Yu felt a surge of joy and activated his heart's eye to share visions. Yet the sight before him made him feel nauseated. In the eagle's perspective, there was a small opening leading to the next layer, surrounded by layers upon layers of bone insects. No, it wasn't just around the opening. The entirety of the icy cavern was inundated with bone insects, stacked in countless layers. They were not merely scattered throughout the cavern, but were amassed in overwhelming numbers. Lu Yu suddenly realized he had underestimated the situation. Millions of bone insects? Such an estimation was far too conservative. The entire cavern likely housed at least hundreds of millions, if not billions, of bone insects. Before Lu Yu could glean any further details, a bone insect leapt onto the black-headed eagle, causing the vision to jolt and ultimately fade away. Lu Yu took a deep breath, contemplating the daunting task of incinerating billions of bone insects. What a monumental challenge this would be. Chapter 247. External assistance. Lu Yu felt a twinge of anxiety. To find himself immobilized by a swarm of lowly level 1 insects was infuriating to contemplate. If there were a formidable high-level boss ahead, even one of the fourth transformation, Lu Yu would be willing to engage in a fierce confrontation. However, this relentless swarm of bone insects left him with a sense of pent-up frustration. No matter how many summoned beasts he conjured from the spatial realm, their presence was rendered futile. Outside the range of divine fire, the number of bone insects was several hundred times that of the summoned beasts, rendering any additional summoning utterly insignificant in expediting their demise. Alas, how tedious it is. If only there were a set of mahjong to pass the time. Chenju scratched his head, having sat idly for several hours. Initially, the group engaged in lively conversation, yet as time wore on, the enthusiasm waned, and they felt as if their very patience was being stripped away, while the bone insects continued to pour in without end. Chenju had grown so bored that he found himself counting the patterns in the ice surrounding him multiple times. Pig brother, there are 6 of us. One set of mahjong isn't enough to play, he remarked. 6 people, however, is just right for a game of Goji. Sun Rueikong surprisingly chimed in. What is Goji? The others exchanged puzzled glances, as none had ever heard of such a game. Lu Yu seemed to recall something. Konggu is from the old 3 provinces, right? Sun Rueikong laughed heartily. I grew up in the old 3 provinces. Goji is a card game that fits perfectly with 6 players at a table. We would play it with such fervor that sometimes we'd end up in a brawl, only to resume the game the next day. Everyone nodded in unison, acknowledging the reputation of the old 3 provinces for their spirited culture. Chenju lay back, gazing up at the ceiling of the ice cavern. Suddenly, a thought struck him. Why do you think no bone insects have crawled to the top and then dropped down to attack us? His observation startled everyone. They found his reasoning compelling and quickly rose to check their surroundings, relieved to confirm there were no bone insects nearby. Without raising his head, Lu Yu had already considered this issue. The diameter of this ice cavern is too vast. The bone insects lack the grip to scale it effectively. Above us is the ceiling, and there are no surfaces for them to cling to. Before they could reach us, they would have already fallen. Understanding dawned upon the group, and they felt a wave of relief wash over them. Chenju, filled with excitement, sprang to his feet and declared, Brother Yu, I've thought of a solution. Once again, the group turned their attention to Chenju, their expressions filled with curiosity. Lu Yu was somewhat surprised. Typically, whenever he was present, his friends tended not to engage their minds. Today, however, was a departure from the norm. Chenju was not only observant, but also brimming with original ideas. Brother Yu, didn't you just subdue a group of ice rock giants? We can have them advance in front while we follow behind. With the holy light of Jiangnan, the bone insects will pose negligible harm to the ice rock giants. Before Chenju could finish, he sensed a peculiar gaze from those around him. Brother Pig, come. Take a seat. I believe it would be prudent for us to discuss how to effectively play the game, as mentioned by Brother Kong. What's wrong? Is there an issue with my proposal? Dreaming Jiangnan interjected. The ice rock giant is far too massive for this enclosed icy cavern. If we proceed as you suggested, pushing them forward, my holy light would only illuminate one side of them, leaving the other side vulnerable to the bone worm's attacks. The pure-hearted youth added, moreover, this icy cavern is larger than the previous layer, not only in width, but also in height. Perhaps 2 or 3 ice rock giants can withstand the bone worms directly in front, but those on the side walls would remain unimpeded. They may struggle on the ceiling, yet they have no such limitations on the walls. Chenju found himself momentarily at a loss for words. He had been so utterly bored that he desperately sought a way to hasten their departure, only to have his ideas effortlessly dismantled. This revelation provoked a mixture of frustration and amusement. After all, they were comrades, and who would harbor anger towards their closest friends? Nevertheless, the thought of remaining idle in this place indefinitely stirred an uncomfortable restlessness within him. How vexing. If only we could establish a spatial passage to transport us directly to the entrance of the next layer. Brother Pig's mind wandered yet again. Without conflict patted Chenju on the shoulder. However, Lu Yu's eyes sparkled with inspiration. Bamboo's notion is not entirely implausible. Which notion? The group's interest piqued. For Lu Yu was known for only speaking when he possessed confidence. Given his assertion, they surmised there must indeed be a viable solution. Just wait. I will summon an ally, Lu Yu announced, as he opened a dialogue with Huan, the world. What are you doing? Want to join me for some level grinding? Lu Yu refrained from mentioning their current predicament, opting instead for the most enticing invitation. After all, who could resist the allure of a guided level-up session? True to form, mere seconds after sending the message, Lu Yu received a response from Huan. The world. Where are you? Send coordinates. And a visual of your surroundings. I shall come through directly. Lu Yu recorded a brief segment capturing his surroundings, ensuring that without conflict and the others appeared amiable, and then sent it along with the coordinates. Why is there fire around you? Are you hosting a bonfire party? Just a moment, I'm on my way. Huan, the world, did not wait for Lu Yu's further reply and promptly closed the dialog box. In the next instant, the space beside Lu Yu suddenly fractured, and the tip of a spear pierced through. The rift widened until it could accommodate a person, and only then did Huan, the world, step through. As he entered Lu Yu's space, the fissure behind him gradually sealed. This spectacle left everyone, save for Lu Yu, utterly astonished. In the past, they would have merely perceived this as a formidable skill. However, upon uncovering the truth of the abyss, their perspective on the game underwent a profound transformation. A skill capable of transcending space was, to them, nothing short of astonishing. Even Sun Ruekong, who remained unaware of the abyss's secrets, could not help but nod in approval upon witnessing Hua and Tianxia's arrival in such a manner, muttering to himself, this guy certainly knows how to make an entrance. Huan and Tianxia were quite pleased with the expressions of those around them. Having observed in Lu Yu's video that many individuals were present, and unlike Lu Yu, they were not accustomed to concealing their IDs, it became apparent to anyone frequenting Lingfeng City and Ji City that this particular team was of significant merit. Apart from a fellow named Constantine, whom he did not recognize, the rest were the core elite of the abyss's leadership. Huan and Tianxia regarded themselves as stalwarts of the Huan Bureau, determined to assert their dominance. Thus, Huan deliberately opened the space at a leisurely pace, presenting the process of its rupture in the most awe-inspiring manner possible. Even after the spatial rift had fully manifested, he refrained from crossing immediately. Instead, he sauntered in with an air of nonchalance during the final 2 seconds. He flashed a courteous smile at everyone, feigning surprise. I didn't expect so many of you here. What are you all doing? Weren't we supposed to be leveling up? Lu Yu rolled his eyes, thinking to himself, can this guy ever refrain from showing off? Chapter 248. No time to waste reflecting on the past. The first time he encountered Hua and Tianxiao in this lifetime, they had also been posturing before him, believing themselves to be superior. In front of everyone, they insisted that he forge equipment for them, until Li Wei intervened personally to put them in their place. Now, familiar with each other, it seemed that this individual was intent on repeating history. Lu Yu smiled slightly. We are trapped here with no way out unless we breach the space. I believe you are the only one among the human race who possesses spatial skills. Without you, we stand little chance of being saved. I implore you to shatter the space and transport us to the entrance of the next level. When Lu Yu spoke these words, he intentionally infused them with flattery. Huan and Tianxia, feeling buoyed by the praise, responded, that's easy. One skill from me can resolve this. However, I assume this fire is not particularly lethal. You must be reluctant to cross due to fear of pain, correct? Fear not. With me here, you are guaranteed safety. Before Chen Zhu could utter another word, he was promptly silenced by Yu Shiji. Lu Yu then provided the coordinates to the entrance of the next level, which was quite close, without needing the surrounding environmental map. Huan and Tianxia could accurately breach the space. Huan glanced at the coordinates, his confidence soaring. A trivial matter, just watch me. With that, he raised his spear once more, the tip poised in the air, as the very fabric of space began to fracture like a mirror. Soon, a spatial rift emerged, instantaneously expanding to the size of a person. Upon witnessing this, the crowd instinctively retreated, stepping into the realm of divine fire. Huan and Tianxia turned back, exclaiming, all right, shall we proceed? Why are you all rushing into the sea of flames? What on earth? Help! As Huan and Tianxia spoke, an overwhelming sensation akin to countless cockroaches crawling over his body suddenly engulfed him. Immediately thereafter, a stinging pain radiated throughout his being, causing him to writhe on the ground. However, he soon realized that there were even more cockroaches on the ground, transforming the area into an ocean of these pests. The crowd erupted into laughter. Although they were being scorched by the divine fire, their discomfort paled in comparison to the agony of being bitten by the bone insects. Lu Yu also remained silent, chuckling amidst the flames. This is what you get for showing off. 3 days without a beating, and you dare to flaunt. Observing Hua and Tianxia's health points dwindling, Lu Yu finally summoned a mage to unleash a torrent of flames around them. Meanwhile, Ru Mingjiang timely supplemented with divine light and healing spells. The spatial rift had long since closed, and after a while, the bone insects within the divine fire were eradicated, allowing Hua and Tianxia to rise from the ground. He now appeared disheveled, completely devoid of his earlier arrogance. Brother Yu, this isn't how you play. Huan and Tianxia lamented, tears of frustration welling in his eyes. His initial instinct had confirmed that Lu Yu had tricked him. The sensation of being bitten was indescribably excruciating. Lu Yu approached and helped him to his feet, saying, consider this a lesson. Refrain from being so ostentatious in my presence. Oh, Huan and Tianxia, supported by Lu Yu, managed to stand. Brother Yu. What were those creatures? One touch, and they were lethal. They were terrifying in their numbers. Lu Yu shared the information about the bone insects with Huan and Tianxia. As Huan perused the data, his eyes widened in disbelief. Brother Yu, you deceived me. You promised to help me level up, but these bone insects offer no experience whatsoever. Indeed, I did deceive you, Lu Yu replied. The pathway to the next level is infested with these bone insects. I estimate there are at least several 100 million of them. Once you open a door, I'll have the mage clear out the bone insects at the entrance of the next level. At the very least, we need a space to stand. All right, I will follow your lead. Huan and Tianxia conceded, aware that despite Lu Yu's words, he would undoubtedly ensure his safety beyond the second level. The absence of experience in this level did not imply the same for the next. Huan had noticed that those who were originally below level 40, such as the untroubled and the invincible handsome man, had already reached level 45 in such a short span. However, please allow me to wait for my skill cooldown. He added, don't you possess equipment that reduces cooldowns? Moments ago, you tore through the fabric of space twice, yet the length of the cooldown remained elusive. That was then, and my equipment's cooldown effect also incurs a cooldown. Lu Yu, after a brief interval, the cooldown of the skills from Hua and Tianxia finally concluded. Brother Yu, we can proceed. The group immediately perked up, eager to depart from this wretched locale. Lu Yu first summoned a cadre of fire mages, their skills poised for deployment. Huan, Tianxia thrust forth their spear, shattering the space. This time, there was no hesitation. The space fractured to the size of a person. Almost simultaneously, a sea of flames erupted, engulfing the entire entrance of the third layer. The crackling of fire resonated throughout. Lu Yu was the first to leap into the inferno. He had never traversed a mountain of blades, but he had certainly experienced the fire sea more than once. The others soon followed suit, as it was not their first encounter with such heat, and they had grown somewhat accustomed to it. Huan and Tianxia brought up the rear, and as they passed through the rift, they promptly sealed it. Lu Yu seized the opportunity to retract the divine fire. Let us move on to the next layer. No one wished to linger in the flames, and they all hastened to descend, with Lu Yu trailing behind. He glanced at the seemingly endless swarm of bone insects, a faint smile gracing his lips. You all proceed. I shall await the cooldown of the divine fire. Brother Yu, what are you planning? Lu Yu produced the herbs from earlier, reminiscent of a dream in Jiangnan. With so many bone insects here, it would be a waste to leave them behind. Better to gather them into his summoning space. Having witnessed the potency of these bone insects, Lu Yu increasingly anticipated his own army of bone insects. Chapter 249. The third layer. Lu Yu was the last to step through the entrance to the third layer. Upon catching up with the others, he found them halted at the exit, hesitating to descend. What is the matter? Is there something below? Brother Yu, perhaps you should cast a few flames down first, and we shall follow. The group was somewhat apprehensive due to the bone insects of the second layer. Should the third layer harbor similar creatures, venturing down recklessly would certainly lead to considerable hardship. Lu Yu could not help but chuckle, yet the concerns of his companions were not unfounded. No one wished to endure the torment of being devoured by myriad insects once more. He decisively cast forth a wave of divine fire. The group immediately listened intently, relieved to hear no crackling in response. Let us proceed. There should not be any more bone insects. With Lu Yu's assurance, they cautiously entered the opening. He followed them down, and as he crossed the threshold, a flicker of light danced before him, and the scene around him changed abruptly. Beside him, the ever-serene presence of those who had descended before him, including Hua Un and Tianxia, had vanished, leaving him alone in the surroundings. Random teleportation? Lu Yu was taken aback and promptly opened the chat interface. Although this map posed challenges for Lu Yu, it remained within the realm of the manageable. However, for others, it can be nothing short of a hellish ordeal. Without Lu Yu's protection, they cannot even surpass the first level. Fortunately, Huan Tianxia has been summoned. As long as each individual reports their coordinates, Huan Tianxia can retrieve them all. As Lu Yu pondered this, he suddenly realized that everyone in the chat box was in a disconnected state, including himself. This situation resembled his experience in the alien realm, where he appeared online, yet could not communicate with anyone, nor could anyone reach him. How frustrating. Lu Yu furrowed his brow, mentally elevating the danger level of this map. It is important to note that the absence of signal in the alien realm was due to the abyss acting as a barrier. Now, with no signal in the third layer, it seems likely that this place is also subject to certain restrictions of the abyss. Lu Yu closed the chat box, praying that the others would not encounter any formidable wild beasts. The innocent youth, Ru Ming Jiangnan, and Huan Tianxia were relatively fine, as they all possessed their own means of survival. However, the remaining three, while perhaps strong compared to ordinary players, were at the bottom of the food chain in this map. It was imperative to locate the others swiftly. At this moment, Lu Yu turned his attention to the ice cavern of the third layer. As he surveyed his surroundings, he suddenly felt that calling it an ice cavern seemed rather inappropriate. The height and vastness of the third layer far exceeded that of the previous two layers. The rocky walls were no longer visible, replaced by an expansive space. Lu Yu felt as if he were inside a colossal stadium, and without glancing at the minimap, he could not discern the cardinal directions. Even with the existence of the minimap, it remained unclear which direction would lead him closer to the entrance of the next layer. How disheartening. Lu Yu could not help but mutter a complaint. There were no structures or wild beasts in sight, as if he were merely suspended above an endless, desolate, icy expanse. Movement could not be taken lightly. Lu Yu quickly composed himself. In such a place, attempting to venture in any direction could be misguided. Yet any direction might also hold promise. Judgment was futile here. Instead, luck seemed to hold greater significance. Unfortunately, Lu Yu was not one to entrust his fate to chance. With strength at his disposal, luck merely served as a supplementary advantage. With a swift gesture, a flock of black-headed eagles appeared above him. At Lu Yu's command, the birds scattered, soaring in various directions. In this moment, Lu Yu felt immensely grateful for having tamed this group of black-headed eagles at Falling Eagle Peak. Although their levels were no longer on par, their ability to fly allowed them to continue to shine. Regrettably, he had not encountered any flying wild beasts since, diminishing the number of his airborne, summonable creatures. It remained uncertain when he would be able to replenish them. Lu Yu summoned a multitude of summoned beasts around him, crafting a relatively secure environment. He then ventured into the summoning space. The experience gained from the recent defeat of the crystal skeletons had accumulated significantly. Although most of it was shared with Chun Zhu and others, the sheer number of tens of thousands of crystal skeletons enriched his experience reservoir considerably. Without hesitation, he allocated all his experience to the Goblin General. Witnessing the transformation of the Goblin General's ability to summon legions upon reaching his first advancement, Lu Yu developed a particular fondness for this summoned creature. The capacity to summon an entire army was undoubtedly a trait exclusive to the Goblin General's essence. Moreover, it was highly probable that the Goblin General was also a fourth-tier entity. Since observing the might of fourth-tier beings, Lu Yu had gained a newfound understanding of certain powers. After the demise of the Son of the Underworld, he remained unaware of the pinnacle combat strength of the Underworld clan. However, he was certain that the Underworld clan possessed fourth-tier beings, for how could such an ancient race of the Abyss lack such formidable guardians? The same logic applied to the Goblin clan, one of the four ancient races, where it was likely that the Goblin General represented their fourth-tier power. Now, with a projection of the Goblin General in his possession, if he could nurture it, its combat prowess would undoubtedly be impressive. This was a projection of a fourth-tier entity. Reflecting on the initial encounter with the Golden Crow in the mystical realm, where a mere avatar scorched the entire domain, Lu Yu resolutely poured all his experience into the Goblin General, elevating its level to 61. As levels increased, the path to advancement became increasingly arduous, a fact that left Lu Yu somewhat disheartened. Aside from the instances of his own demise, those summoned beasts whose levels were inherently lower than his could never surpass him. For every wild creature slain, Lu Yu would consume half the experience, depositing the remaining portion into the experience reservoir. Even if he directed all experience to a single summoned beast, it could at most reach parity with his level. Lu Yu glanced at the Goblin General's ability to summon legions, noting that a few hours remained before the cooldown expired. Unbeknownst to him, another day was slipping away. He approached a group of mermaids gathered around a vast pool of water. Including Shelley, there were a total of 51 mermaids frolicking in the waters. Except for Shelley, the other mermaids had actively requested to be tamed by Lu Yu, to whom he had pledged vengeance on their behalf and promised them a secure living environment. Now, within the summoning space, they lived pleasantly, free from the fear of being hunted by the Underworld clan, and occasionally welcomed other races' summoned beasts for companionship. As Lu Yu approached, the mermaid group erupted in joyous cheers, expressing their deep gratitude for their master. Unlike other summoned beasts, they are the only ones who actively seek to be tamed. Thus, for Lu Yu, their relationship transcends mere obedience, blossoming into a deeper emotional connection. Chapter 350. The rumors among the mermaid clan. Lu Yu exchanged a few simple words with them before preparing to depart. However, Tian Lu suddenly interjected, "Master, I've noticed an increase in the number of crystal skeletons around here. Are you in the lair of the Frostbone Dragon?" Lu Yu was taken aback. He hadn't anticipated that Tian Lu was aware that crystal skeletons were a byproduct of the Frostbone Dragon. "My parents told me this," she continued without waiting for Lu Yu to inquire further. "They also mentioned that the Frostbone Dragon's most renowned and celebrated attribute is its frost power. It possesses immense destructive capability and can alter the surrounding environment." Lu Yu nodded in agreement, fully recognizing that the environment he found himself in was undoubtedly influenced by the Frostbone Dragon. However, he recalled his parents stating that while everyone focuses solely on its frost power, they tend to overlook its other abilities, which could be far more perilous. A frown creased Lu Yu's brow. "Other abilities are the most dangerous? What other abilities?" Tian Lu's expression turned troubled. "My parents didn't elaborate. They seemed unaware as well. This saying has been passed down for ages, and by the time it reached me, only fragments remained." Lu Yu felt a wave of frustration. He despised when crucial information suddenly ceased at the most pivotal moment. Why, when such significant matters were passed down, was the complete account not preserved? Why leave behind vague fragments instead of the most critical parts? The air of mystery surrounding it only heightened his curiosity, yet he remained oblivious to the true significance. Taking a deep breath, Lu Yu considered the weight of Tian Lu's so-called inherited wisdom. Unlike Tian Lu, Sherry had grown up among humans for reasons unknown, leaving her ignorant of many vital legends within the mermaid clan. In contrast, Sherry had always been sheltered by her parents and lived within her community, thus acquiring far more knowledge. She had initially sought human protection in times of dire peril, leading her to Lu Yu and willingly accepting his taming. Seeing Tian Lu's troubled demeanor, Lu Yu gently patted her head, refraining from pressing further. However, he resolved to engage in deeper discussions with Tian Lu when time permitted. As many of the tales within her clan appeared to harbor profound secrets, unsure of the Frostbone Dragon's other abilities, Lu Yu felt compelled to remain vigilant. Afterward, he bid farewell to the mermaid group and approached the small abyss hidden in the corner. Upon noticing Lu Yu's approach, the little abyss quivered uncontrollably. Observing its trembling form, Lu Yu felt a spark of confusion. This little creature had always been eager to please him in the past. What was amiss today? Had it secretly consumed a summoned beast? Lu Yu scrutinized the diminutive abyss once more, finding no evidence of any enlargement. Have you been indulging in the consumption of summoned beasts? No, absolutely not. I can assure you, I can clearly discern the number of summoned beasts here. If you confess voluntarily, I might consider leniency, otherwise, Lu Yu stated, as he opened the panel of the abyss. Wow. In that instant, Lu Yu was overwhelmed by a profound sense of the abyss's grievance. Master, it wasn't I who indulged. It was that bone insect that fell into my mouth all on its own. I swear it just dropped in. The abyss was now both frightened and aggrieved. It had been diligently restraining its appetite, terrified that a moment of weakness would lead it to consume a summoned beast, resulting in its demise at the hands of Lu Yu. However, just a few hours prior, a multitude of bone insects had plummeted into the summoning space. Their descent was utterly chaotic, and one happened to land directly in the abyss's mouth. Had it been a higher-level summoned beast, the abyss might have reacted in time to expel it. Yet, being a level 1 bone insect, it possessed scant energy, and before the abyss could respond, it had already digested the insect autonomously. This left the abyss in a state of alarm. It truly had no intention of indulging. The bone insect had merely collided with it. Initially, it thought to itself that it was merely a small bone insect. And with nearly 100 million of them in the summoning space, the master surely wouldn't notice the absence of one. Little did it know, Lu Yu's very first words upon arrival were accusations of gluttony. This revelation made the abyss feel as though the sky were collapsing. Realizing it could not conceal the truth from Lu Yu, it confessed outright. Lu Yu was taken aback. He had merely suspected the abyss was behaving unusually and sought to provoke it. To his surprise, the abyss had indeed revealed its secret. This made Lu Yu feel a mixture of amusement and exasperation. At present, the summoning space continued to rain bone insects, with a steady influx being captured. Lu Yu chose to believe the abyss's account. An accidental consumption could be forgiven, yet he had no intention of allowing the abyss to exploit this leniency. This little creature would undoubtedly seize any opportunity to feast. If he permitted such behavior today, it would lead to an endless stream of summoned beasts inexplicably finding their way into its maw in the future. Have I not expressly stated that without my command, you are forbidden from consuming any summoned beasts, regardless of the circumstances? The abyss longed to retort, for Lu Yu had only forbidden it against gluttony, never mentioning any such caveat regarding circumstances. However, it understood that refuting Lu Yu now would only serve to seal its fate. Thus, it begrudgingly acquiesced. Very well. Then you may perish now. Please, master. I promise I shall never dare again. Spare me this time. You have defied my command. Your continued existence holds no significance. Master, I still have value. I am of use. Little Abyss understood that in order to survive, it must showcase its value to the fullest extent. What use are you? It pondered. Enhancement potions and equipment? Their significance to me is rather minimal. Lu Yu spoke the truth. He hardly needed potions, and while equipment was important, it was not paramount. As a summoner, his greatest reliance was still on his summoned beasts. No, master. I can also assist in enhancing your summoned beasts. I can make those summoned creatures here much stronger. Chapter 351. Enhancing the bone worm. Lu Yu gazed deeply at Little Abyss. Indeed, this creature would only reveal its full capabilities under extreme duress. It would not divulge everything until faced with true life and death circumstances. Previously, it had only mentioned that these summoned beasts could provide energy, without hinting at its ability to enhance living beings. Lu Yu, uninterested in pressing Little Abyss for its prior reticence, pointed at a bone worm and inquired, how much energy is required for its enhancement? Little Abyss pondered for a moment. For a standard enhancement, it requires an identical bone worm. For a superior enhancement, 2 are necessary. Lu Yu was surprised that Little Abyss could propose 2 enhancement options. What is the effect of the standard enhancement? The standard enhancement can triple its attributes. For the cost of 1 bone worm, exchanging it for another bone worm with tripled attributes does not adhere to the conservation of mass. Of course, this was not the crux of the matter. The focal point was that, given the minimal attributes of the bone worm, not to mention tripling its attributes, even enhancing them tenfold would still render them easily dispatched. This required sacrificing half of their number. Are you certain this is an enhancement and not a detriment? Lu Yu shook his head and decisively inquired about the effects of the superior enhancement. Master, the superior enhancement requires the consumption of 2 bone worms. The attributes of the bone worm will not increase, but it can provide an additional effect. What effect? The effect of corpse poison is doubled, or invincibility for 1 second before death. Then grant me the latter effect, the invincibility for 1 second before death. Upon hearing this option, Lu Yu did not hesitate to make his choice. In his view, while the size of the bone worms would reduce to 1/3 of their original number, each would gain an invincibility skill, making this a lucrative trait. The bone worm's greatest flaw was its fragility. With the invincibility skill, their survivability would significantly increase. Although it was merely a second of invincibility, it would allow them to avoid being instantly killed, thus enabling them to unleash their corpse poison. Must I use bone worms for the enhancement? If the bone worms could possess an invincibility skill, he now preferred to utilize energy from other summoned beasts. For instance, goblin projections. Having summoned thousands, he would not lack goblins in the future. Master, it is indeed necessary to use the same kind for enhancement. Otherwise, it can only boost attributes. When the little abyss uttered these words, it exhibited a hint of trepidation, not due to any deceit towards Lu Yu, but rather from a fear that Lu Yu might not place his trust in it. Then enhance these bone insects, along with those that will arrive later. With an invincible effect, Lu Yu commanded. Understood, Master, the little abyss replied hastily, relieved that Lu Yu had refrained from mentioning its potential obliteration, having narrowly escaped destruction. It now displayed an unusual eagerness. Lu Yu said nothing further and turned to exit the summoning space. The enhancement of the other summoned beasts could wait. The mere multitude of bone insects, amounting to billions, would keep the little abyss occupied for quite some time. Were it not for the limitation regarding its kin, Lu Yu would have preferred to enhance the Goblin General instead. He had discerned that among all his current summoned creatures, the Goblin General possessed the greatest potential, even surpassing that of the little golden crow. This was genuinely a projection of a true 4th-tier entity. Upon leaving the summoning space, Lu Yu's consciousness returned to the icy cavern. The black-headed eagles he had dispatched had yet to relay any significant news. They remained alive and continued their explorations. Yet their path was fraught with nothing but the icy expanse, no other phenomena in sight. This left Lu Yu perplexed. How could such a vast area of ice contain nothing at all? In the first layer, there had been crystal skeletons embedded within the ice. Yet, in this layer, it was utterly barren. Had the Frostbone Dragon truly carved out such a considerable territory without placing anything within it? Or was it simply not yet prepared to do so? What does it mean to not yet be prepared? Lu Yu shook his head, suddenly feeling a swirl of confusion. His mind clouded. Since entering the 3rd layer, he had sensed something amiss. Habitually, he cast a healing spell upon himself. The persistent effects of frostbite could be somewhat mitigated by consuming a fortified healing potion, but as he possessed healing skills, he had no need for the potion. The healing light enveloped Lu Yu, restoring a measure of clarity to his mind. Why did he feel dizzy upon entering the 3rd layer when such sensations had not plagued him in the previous 2? This puzzlement led him to recall the words of Tian Lu. Could it be that this was the Frostbone Dragon's subtle, yet easily overlooked ability? To induce a state of unconsciousness without one being aware? This certainly aligned with the characteristic of being easily missed. Yet if this were indeed another capability of the Frost Ancient Dragon, it seemed rather trivial. Such a disorienting power could be alleviated somewhat by a mere healing spell. If only dreamlike Jiangnan were present, a dispelling skill could have resolved the matter directly, perhaps even without resorting to the holy light spells. Nevertheless, Lu Yu remained cautiously vigilant. The reason for his drowsiness was likely not another ability of the Frostbone Dragon, yet it was undoubtedly caused by the dragon itself. In such frigid conditions, experiencing hallucinations was entirely normal, especially given Lu Yu's current state. He couldn't help but worry about others. In the current situation, if there were no additional wild monsters, Ruming Jiangnan was the safest option. He was both a master healer and an apothecary, possessing the strongest survival capabilities in adverse conditions. Aside from Ruming Jiangnan, there was only Lu Yu himself. He had a multitude of summoned beasts, including many supportive classes like priests. However, the survival capabilities of others were likely not as formidable. Lu Yu was already feeling a bit lightheaded, and it was likely that others were not faring much better. Currently, he had no means of contacting them, and was completely unaware of their circumstances. As he pondered this, he suddenly tapped his head, realizing how muddled his thoughts were and how slow his reactions had become. Was it truly impossible to reach out to others in the game? And could he not do so in reality either? The abyss had yet to descend. Chapter 352. Offline. His small team, aside from Hua and Tianxia, resided in a villa. Lu Yu immediately logged off and exited the game pod. It was the middle of the night, yet the bedroom light remained on, revealing that he was the only one present in the room. It seemed that the others were likely as disoriented as he was. Lu Yu stepped out of his room and approached Chenju's door. Instead of knocking, he pushed the door open, but to his surprise, it didn't budge. This guy had locked the door after entering the abyss. Lu Yu was at a loss for words. Did he not realize that his current physical state was compromised? How could he dare to lock the door? Should he encounter any danger inside, it would be too late to rescue him. Lu Yu resolved to have a serious talk with Chenju when he saw him. The spare key to the room should be with Wu Shi Wu Zheng and Sun Ruekong. Lu Yu then proceeded to Wu Shi Wu Zheng's door and gently pushed it open. Thankfully, this guy did not have a habit of locking his door. Upon entering, he was greeted by a sight of crumpled tissues scattered across the floor and some unidentifiable discs. Who still watches discs in this day and age? Lu Yu absent-mindedly picked one up, noticing that it was inscribed with Japanese characters, incomprehensible to him. After pondering for a moment, he ultimately decided against taking a few for himself. However, recalling Chunju's act of locking the door, Lu Yu suddenly grasped something. Being human, one always harbors needs. If one refrains from engaging in illegal activities outside and avoids mischief in the game, opting instead to resolve issues within the confines of their room, in today's society, that is already commendable. Nonetheless, it was still necessary to remind him that locking the door was unnecessary. Wu Shi Wu Zheng excelled in this regard. Lu Yu approached the game pod belonging to Wu Shi Wu Zheng and tapped the outer wall. After a brief wait, the game pod did not open. He knocked more forcefully a few times, and finally, the pod slowly creaked open. As I opened my eyes, I was taken aback to see you. How did you get in? Upon asking, I instantly regretted my words, realizing that this was not the opportune moment for such inquiries. Your door was unlocked, so I entered. How are you faring? Have you encountered any wild creatures? You inquired, specifically regarding the happenings within the icy cavern. While I had not encountered any wild beasts, my current condition was far from favorable. I shook my head. I have remained stationary, awaiting your arrival, but nearly 2 hours have elapsed without sight of your summoned beast. Moreover, the critical issue lies in the fact that my potions are running low. Once they are depleted, my health will steadily decline until my demise. In this malevolent realm, each death results in a loss of 5 levels, with the added misfortune of reviving in place, unable to return to the fountain. My approach was, indeed, prudent. In such a high-level terrain, you led us as a guardian would a group of children. When a child is lost, the best course of action is to remain still, waiting for the parent to come looking. However, this map appeared to be exceedingly vast, resulting in you, the guardian, failing to locate even one lost child thus far. Please summon Juzi and Brother Kong. I shall call upon Ruming Jiangnan and Chuqing Xiaoyan. Let us all convene in the living room. Understood. The two of us parted ways, and you wisely refrained from asking me to summon the 2 young ladies. He was well aware that neither I nor the young ladies would wish to awaken to the sight of a bald man. You first approached the door of Chuqing Xiaoyan. Although he knew the young lady inside the gaming pod could not hear him, he still knocked on the door. Upon confirming she had not vacated the pod, he pushed the door open. The young girl's door was also unlatched. As he entered, he was immediately greeted by a wall adorned with a note. You scrutinized the contents of the note. Big brother, I knew you would sneak in to find me. Let us keep our voices down so we won't be discovered. A look of confusion crossed Yu's face. Had this young girl already exited the game and been waiting for him? Did she possess some sort of recovery skill that rendered her unafraid of the freezing damage? Chuqing Xiaoyan? You called tentatively, but received no response. He cautiously ventured further inside, discovering that he was alone in the room. The gaming pod of Chuqing Xiaoyan was still operational. A wave of exasperation washed over him, evidently. That note had not been affixed today, but had been there all along. Today was merely the first instance he had entered and noticed it. Let us keep our voices down so we won't be discovered. He pondered what thoughts had lingered in the young girl's mind all this time. Lu Yu stepped out of the gaming pod and gently knocked, the pod swiftly opening in response. The innocent youth, upon seeing Lu Yu, was instantly filled with surprise. Brother, you came in without anyone knowing, right? It doesn't matter if someone finds out. Just being favored by you is enough. At that moment, Lu Yu felt an impulse to slap the young girl. How could she still utter such frivolous remarks at this time? He promptly interrupted the innocent youth's musings. How are you doing now? I haven't had my period, and I really want to, she replied. Stop right there. I meant how are you faring in the ice cavern? Oh, brother, that's what you meant. I'm doing well, aside from not being able to find you all. I have no major issues. And the frostbite? My potions are sufficient. Last time, you left many enhanced red potions in the gang's warehouse, and I exchanged for quite a few. Lu Yu felt relieved. Despite the innocent youth's carefree demeanor, she was actually quite observant. Go wake Ruming Jiangnan and then come to the living room. Okay, brother. The innocent youth began to step out of the gaming pod. She was clad in nothing but simple underwear, her proud curves gently swaying, exposing a large expanse of creamy skin. Even Lu Yu couldn't help but linger his gaze for a moment before taking a deep breath and turning to leave. Brother, I think we have time now. She called after him. Lu Yu, disinterested in further conversation, walked straight out of the room. How could she even dare to carry the name Innocent Youth? Just as Lu Yu exited the Innocent Youth's room, he noticed the door to the adjacent room opening. It was Ruming Jiangnan's room. Upon seeing Lu Yu emerge from the Innocent Youth's chamber, her mouth parted slightly, her eyes gleaming with suppressed mirth. Before Lu Yu could explain, Ruming Jiangnan complained. Leader, why didn't you come to call me first? Is it because my figure doesn't compare to Sister Innocent? Enough. No need for explanations. Let's all head to the living room, Lu Yu replied, already making his way there while dialing Li Wei's number. The 2 young girls exchanged smiles behind him and followed closely in his wake. In the living room, the trio of Wuji awaited them. Sun Ruekong looked particularly distressed. For when Wuji had called him, He had just finished the last of his potion. He was not a member of the Abyss Lord faction. So not only did he lack Lu Yu's enhanced potions, but he also had none of the powerful potions crafted by Ru Ming Jiangnan. This left him in a rather precarious situation. Realizing the urgency, Lu Yu immediately altered his plan. Leave your specific coordinates. Then return to log back in and wait for Hua and Tianxia to pick you up. Chapter 353. Something seems off. A series of notes detailing coordinates were laid before Lu Yu. Wuji and the others returned to their respective rooms, knowing they couldn't be away for long, as they needed to continue consuming potions. Soon, the living room was left with only Lu Yu. With his summoned beast priest providing healing, it was of little concern for him to delay his return. He picked up the coordinate address from the table and began to sequentially send it to Li Wei via his phone. Ultimately, these coordinates would be relayed to Hua and Tianxia, who would locate individuals at these points and gather them together. Lu Yu, referencing the coordinates on the note, began inputting them. First was Chunju's coordinate, 17656-53228, which appeared to be quite close to him. With a hint of perplexity, Lu Yu completed the entry. Then picked up the note of Wu Shi Wuzhang, 17642-53100. Lu Yu scrutinized the note once more and compared it with Chunju's. He was neither mistaken nor hallucinating. The coordinates of the two individuals were merely a few hundred meters apart. Should they take a few steps, they might encounter one another. However, this was not the crux of the matter. The most pressing concern was Lu Yu's own coordinate, 17601-53321. He was less than a kilometer from both individuals. Yet, in terms of time, the summoned beast he dispatched had traversed dozens of kilometers without encountering anyone. It was improbable that there had been an oversight. Lu Yu had sent out summoned beasts in all directions, ensuring a comprehensive search. Why then had he not seen Chunju and Wu Shi Wuzhang? In haste, Lu Yu examined the next note, belonging to the pure-hearted youth. Similar to the previous case, the location of the pure-hearted youth also fell within Lu Yu's kilometer radius. At this point, Lu Yu was thoroughly convinced that there was an issue at play, and it was likely linked to another ability of the Frostbone Dragon. He forced himself to remain calm and promptly sent all the coordinates to Li Wei, requesting him to inform Hua and Tianxia to retrieve the individuals. Only then did Lu Yu log in. With a flash of light, he reappeared in the icy cavern. The surroundings were identical to what they had been when he left. Save for the summoned beasts surrounding him, guarding against the unending frost, Lu Yu dared not move, instead summoning the black-headed eagle to ascend and survey the coordinates of the others. The black-headed eagle possessed excellent vision under normal circumstances. It could clearly discern anything within a kilometer. Yet, as it gazed towards the distant coordinates, the area was devoid of any presence. Illusion. This was Lu Yu's immediate reaction. Having triumphed several times through the use of illusions, Lu Yu was highly vigilant against them. However, everything around him appeared strikingly real, and neither the eagle's keen eyesight nor the Netherclan's spectral perception offered any warning of an illusion. Could it be due to the vast disparity in levels? Lu Yu composed himself. If it truly were an illusion, then once the caster became aware of their own magic, cracks would inevitably appear in the illusion itself. At this moment, a mere application of a slight external force, be it through self-harm or a gentle push from someone outside the illusion, could awaken one from the trance. Lu Yu diligently sought the fissures within the illusion. However, after a prolonged effort, he was met with futility. Everything around him appeared to be genuinely existent, rather than a mere figment of imagination. Undeterred, Lu Yu retrieved a small knife from his backpack and made a small incision in the palm of his hand. Blood flowed profusely, the sensation of pain undeniably authentic, devoid of any semblance of falsehood. Yet, the surroundings remained unchanged. Something was amiss, deeply amiss. Lu Yu was now nearly certain that he was unequivocally not ensnared within an illusion. However, if he was not ensnared, why could he not perceive the individuals who were so close at hand? It struck him that, from a rational perspective, the current situation was beyond comprehension. Minutes had elapsed, over 10, to be precise. Yet, logically, Huan and the others should have arrived by now. Yet, to his dismay, not a single soul had appeared. Lu Yu once again entered the summoning space, materializing directly beside the mermaid, Tian Lu. The only viable lead lay in the whispered legends of her kind. Please recount for me the tale regarding the Frostbone Dragon from your tribe, preferably in its original wording, Lu Yu implored. Tian Lu's expression faltered. She genuinely could not recall the exact phrasing. Though she had been raised within her clan, she was still quite young, barely having reached adulthood. Moreover, her attention had never lingered on such tales, and Lu Yu's sudden request to recite the original words left her utterly blank. Recognizing her predicament, Lu Yu realized he had no better leads at hand. Come with me. Perhaps observing the Frostbone Dragon's habitat might jog your memory, he suggested. Tian Lu nodded in agreement. Lu Yu exited the summoning space, beckoning her forth. The moment Tian Lu appeared, she was immediately overwhelmed by the frigid surroundings, her vitality rapidly diminishing. Simultaneously, the passive effect of Soul Howl was triggered. Lu Yu felt his very soul quiver, compounded by the disorientation brought on by the cold, and he collapsed to the ground. One hand clutched his head while the other braced against the icy surface, his expression contorted in agony. Damn it. I forgot that mermaids also trigger Soul Howl when injured, Lu Yu lamented. Tian Lu, realizing her earlier misstep, hastily fell silent. The reverberations of sound gradually subsided, and Lu Yu slowly regained his composure. However, just then, the ice layer appeared to tremble. As it quivered, Lu Yu caught sight of an identical ice cavern beneath, where Chen Zhu sat anxiously in place. What the? Lu Yu exclaimed in astonishment. Although the scene had only manifested for an instant, everything soon returned to normal. However, Lu Yu was certain that it was no mere figment of his imagination. The scene before him unfolded like a glitch in a video game, or perhaps akin